good amount of people here attending this European Coast Guard function, part of project ending event. A couple of house rules first. I'd like to announce. In the case of emergency, if you hear emergency signal, so we have 2 escape doors here, one here on the left-hand side and one on the back. So please use those doors in the case of emergency. We have interpretation available here. The devices are there in front of the desk, so please, those who need interpretation, get your device from there. Coffee break and coffee will be served on the next floor in our cafeteria. So, Henrik, please, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Marco. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Marco. Ladies and gentlemen, great pleasure to be here in Lisbon, and I'm sure that you can also share the same sentiment, because we have been so nicely treated here with sun and warmth, and I'm sure that the fact that we have to spend the whole day inside is not going to hold us back later on the day. And it's also for me pleasure and an honor to address this closing conference of the pilot project on European Coast Guard cooperation with such an impressive audience coming from so many different national departments and agencies, and also very pleased to welcome here Artis Pabriks from the European Parliament and of course representatives from very many important bodies. Let me start by reminding you of some of the figures that you all are surely familiar with, but it's always good to put things also in the context and sometimes to remind the obvious. 316 civilian and military member states authorities have been identified as responsible for Coast Guard functions within the EU, and they collaborate with 70 different structures. I think that these numbers also already do tell the story and also explain why we are here and why we are doing what we are doing. The list of Coast Guard functions is also a long and an impressive one, so I will just mention the different aspects. The maritime safety, including the vessel traffic management, maritime ship and port security, thirdly, maritime customs activities, fourthly, the prevention and suppression of trafficking and of smuggling and connected law enforcement at sea, sea border control, 6, maritime monitoring and surveillance, 7, maritime environmental protection and response, 8, search and rescue, 9, ship casualty and maritime assistance service, 10, maritime accident and disaster response, and 11, fisheries inspections and controls. It's really a very wide range of different activities which are being carried out in different member states under this umbrella. And with so many different functions involved, I'm sure that it does not really surprise us that the previous attempts to create the European Coast Guard have not been that successful, even though one has to remind that the European Parliament was a front-runner in this regard, with calls dating back for more than 10 years. But times and environment change, and now we are moving forward with a great determination. EU is known to develop and deepen its cooperation through overcoming crises. We do not want them to happen, but we have been successful in making good use of them to strengthen our cooperation and better withstand also the external challenges that we are facing. This time, and in this particular context, the migration crisis in the Mediterranean was a significant trigger that made the EU to respond collectively and smart. And I think this is also the very good background of what we are trying to do and how we are trying to move on and move forward. The point of departure and the existing fragmentation, as well as the wide range of responsibilities that I also described before, require an innovative and at the same time also pragmatic approach, exploiting synergies between the EU agencies dealing with Coast Guard functions, building on existing experiences and assets, and focusing on operational needs rather than structures and procedures. We also have to understand that we do not have unlimited human resources, we do not have unlimited financial resources, on the contrary. So we have to make sure that what we have, we can also use in the most efficient way in order to deliver the maximum value added in this particular domain. I know that some of you may still have concerns that by pursuing this agenda, the agencies will no longer focus on their core tasks. That is not the case, because this is also now going to be part of the core tasks that the agencies are discharging. There are also member states who reject altogether the name of Coast Guard, being misleading exactly because of the different perceptions that have existed or have been historically present in one or another member state. But the harsh reality is that the 11 individual functions which I described earlier exist today, and in order to effectively and efficiently exploit them, the structured cooperation is a must. There is no other way to create synergies and efficiencies. I therefore take the opportunity and call on you today, representing many of the 316 authorities involved, to take the European point of view and see the added value that this can bring. It is time to think European. There is a common challenge we all face, and we should try to see the benefits that the new approach can bring to you and your various operations and responsibilities. Europeans are far often seeing the glass half empty, not half full. No doubt, half empty is the easier way, but half full is a way that takes us further and makes us also stronger. So let's see this opportunity also where the glass is half full, not half empty. Now, what is this new approach about we have been talking? Reflection started in autumn 2015, and I'm proud as well as appreciative of the work that has been carried out since then, and of the results already delivered a year and a half later, in a very short time span. Let me recall the principles that cover the new approach. Firstly, full respect of functional integrity at EU and national level. The goal is to enhance cooperation and coordination among all concerned civilian and military member state authorities assisted by the respective EU agencies. Not to move towards the creation of a single body or to interfere into the national administrative structure and balance of power. This is reflected in the new interagency cooperation. Each EU agency sticks to its mandate, but at the same time creating synergies and value added. And I think this is very important in order to preserve the integrity of the work of the agencies, but at the same time also actually integrate the new elements into their core tasks. Secondly, avoid duplication and ensure coherence in EU action. EU legislation already covered most of the Coast Guard functions. It was therefore essential that the main actors, and in particular the competent EU agencies, would strengthen their cooperation and also the ways how to work forward and together. Thirdly, to build on what has been achieved so far in this domain. I don't need to explain to you what this means, and in particular how important it was not to reinvent the wheel, but to guarantee the best use of EU taxpayers' money, or taxpayers' money, building on existing structures and practices. And last but not least, involve all the relevant actors. This is a medium-term goal, which has not yet been fully achieved. The priority in the past months was to have the new cooperation up and running between the three agencies, and I'm very grateful for that and the work they have been doing. But obviously, we need the cooperation to be developed beyond that and to involve other actors, such as the European and regional Coast Guard fora, the military, and in particular, European Defence Agency, who is also present here today and with whom the cooperation I value very much. But also the customs and neighboring third countries as well in that domain. With these principles in mind, the three agencies have been mandated last year by the Council and the European Parliament to cooperate on an equal footing and have been provided with additional resources to implement operational activities and thereby focus on providing the European value added. What are then these operational activities about? This is indeed what we will hear about today much more in detail. That is also why we are here. I'm looking forward to the discussions regarding the significant contribution the agencies can make to reinforce the European capability for maritime security and surveillance, in particular for the protection of EU external sea borders and for providing the necessary response to the refugee crisis, one of the major challenges the EU has faced in the recent times. And of course, I think it is also very important here to underline really the significant work that has been done in the Mediterranean today by the different actors and how much this is appreciated, what they are doing on a daily basis there. Let me also underline that the enhanced services by our three agencies will not only address sea border protection, but also fully support maritime safety, security, and environmental protection, as well as fisheries control, the respective core missions of EMSA and EFRA. Over the last 10 to 15 years, the three agencies have been working with National Coast Guard in respective areas of their competence. EMSA, Frontex, and EFRA have been taking advantage of EMSA's maritime surveillance images for situational awareness at sea. This has contributed to the closer collaboration. I'm looking forward to hearing the concrete results of that later on today. Collaboration is not always a linear path. It requires commitment, vision, and pragmatism. A good example is the development of the new ARPAS capabilities, the remotely piloted aircraft systems, or drones, as we know them. And I commend here EMSA for its continued efforts to promote the use of this novel but rapidly expanding technology. This is the future, and we must be one step ahead of the curve. And I also know that the other agencies, Frontex, ECHA, are also doing their part in order to facilitate the uptake of the ARPAS solutions. Equally, there are synergies to be found between the work of EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency, on the regulatory side, and the work of EMSA on the civilian user side. There is yet little experience with the provision of ARPAS service, and there are still challenges in technological and regulatory terms. So here again, collaboration between our different EU agencies is a must and also a good opportunity. I'm glad that everybody is now on board and the agencies are preparing to make full use of the ARPAS services in the central Mediterranean in the coming weeks, and also that there has been some successful testing demonstrations that have taken place. The EU faces many challenges today, and tackling all these challenges requires that we all work closely together. Deepening our cooperation makes us stronger and gives us necessary tools that contribute positively to the EU, its citizens, and to all the member states. Thank you for your good cooperation, and let's make this a success together. Thank you for your attention, and have a successful day.
Director General, thank you very much for your encouraging wise words for for the agencies and all the stakeholders. Thank you very much. Our next speaker comes from the political side. He is the representative of the European Parliament, Artis Pabriks, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, thank you very much for being able to take part also in this workshop. I was the one who was responsible in the European Parliament for the creation of European Coast Guard and Border Guard improved agency framework. And this is why also I am happy to follow up what is going on and what is happening as far as our external borders and internal developments. I also particularly have an interest because I see this increasingly as an integrated matter in politics. Because I'm coming myself for a long time from executive branch, and now being in legislative branch, I maybe more than some of us see the necessity to see all this in an integrated matter. In fact, we in European Union now are in a quite difficult situation. We are in the crossroads where some are questioning, should we go towards a deeper integration and cooperation, while others are again telling us that maybe we should just abandon a number of things. And if I'm looking just back a year ago when we have been intensively discussing the creation of European Border and Coast Guard Agency, then we have been really seeing these questions in our working group, and I was facing these questions from my colleagues in the Parliament on a daily basis. Because there have been one branch, I would say to the right, who told why, sorry for my expression, why to the hell we need this Border Guards and Coast Guard Agency. We have our national borders. That's it, and we can cooperate among our institutions barely at home. Why still we need European Union? And then we had another radical view, which thought, look, we are not going to build here any kind of a Border and Coast Guard Agency because we are not going to strengthen European fortress and strengthen our borders. We have to keep borders open. And imagine my work where I have to bring these people together and get a majority to succeed in order to get through the document in the Parliament. I must say thank you to many of my workers. We did it, and we did it actually with God's speed in 4 months. So with that, I'm very proud, and you know politicians like to brag, so this is a thing about what I'm really bragging. Now, as far as your workshop, I would say that it was also very, very important that we succeeded to include in not only in the name Border and Coast Guard, but also in praxis this cooperation on our maritime borders, because our idea, very initial idea from the small working group in European Parliament, which have been dealing on daily issues with that time presidency of Netherlands and Commission, was not somehow to undermine, for instance, one or another agency, either fisheries agency or a maritime safety agency, but rather to use this new document, this new approach, as to increase the cooperation and coordination between these agencies. Because in practice, already it happens for a long time. So in our case, we thought, okay, if this is happening, we have to use the chance really to a little bit more formalize and institutionalize this. And I'm happy to hear today, and also to hear that here is also our representatives of Defense Agency, because in my view, with such a small steps, because you are, most of you, or all of you, you are practitioners, and I really think I understand your daily needs. I think we need to go small steps forward really to increase also this cooperation and coordination with such an agency like, for instance, EU Defense Agency, because there is a lot of either bigger or smaller plans for more integrated approach, for more efficient approach, how we can deal in EU policies. And I think European Union at this moment, in these difficult times, we really need these small proofs. We don't need a grandiose plans to build a European army or something, in my view. This is my personal view. But we need these small steps where we can show to our citizens, where I as a politician can go and tell to my voters, look, yes, actually things are happening, they are efficient, and we are managing to improve your safety, we are managing to improve your quality of life, and I think in this workshop we will hear a hard data, hard facts, how these things are actually going to be improved because of this better cooperation between different types of agencies, and that European Union's money is well spent for our common collective goals. I understand, of course, that external borders and borders in general are the responsibility of member states. And nobody also is doubting this, because we had also such a discussion previously. But on the other hand, imagine all those hundreds of European border guards, maritime people, other individuals who are, because of this cooperation, can get a daily improvement of their qualifications, who can cooperate, who can understand each other, and we can bring also our legislation on much more advanced level, either on the non-member state basis or in the European Union in general. So I'm highly, let's say, happy that this cooperation is going on. I understand that this pilot project was already taken well before the mandate of Frontex was actually revived, but the timing and the actual analysis of the results, this is exactly the time now, because we need such success stories. And you can be really a very, very hard and good proof for this success story. I will not take much more time of your attention, because there's a lot of practical things to discuss. I will follow up with a great interest here, because there is nothing more. There's not possibility to have two short political speeches, you know that. But I still wanted to use a chance to say thank you also to Mauricio Leggeri for a very practical approach. We're looking forward to hear also update from him sometime in future in European Parliament. But I really believe personally in a way how politics should be conducted. If you are in legislative branch, you set up the strategy, you cooperate with Commission, you cooperate with Council, but don't put your nose in too much practical things. These are for the people to whom you trust. And we trust such people like Mr. Leggeri and the heads of other agencies. So good luck for your work. Please keep in mind that all these issues are highly integrated. And from your small successes and bigger successes, very much depends that our common success of our union. Thank you very much.
Honorable member of the European Parliament, Mr. Director General, distinguished guests from the European Commission, dear colleagues from EU agencies, board members and national authorities, it is my great pleasure to have the opportunity to host at EMSA's magnificent premises the closing workshop of the pilot project, Creation of European Coast Guard Function, together with my colleagues, Mr. Savoret and Mr. Leggeri. I can start by thanking both EU institutions, the European Parliament and the European Commission, for their visionary initiative back in 2015 to initiate this pilot project, which started early 2016, stimulating further the cooperation between the EMSA, Frontex and EFTA on Coast Guard functions. As you know, the result of this interinstitutional initiative is that the three agencies have now a common article in each of the founding regulations, stating clearly the areas for cooperation and where we are expected to make the difference in working together. I only want to highlight that In a way, this is nothing new for the agencies. We have been collaborating many years before this article came into force, but of course it enhances our capabilities and our possibilities to collaborate more in the future. The pilot project was the prototypical step to a more structured cooperation which started formally in 2017 with resources allocated to the agencies and the signature of three-party working arrangement between us. This agreement, approved by the respective governing boards, sketches the governance of the cooperation with the steering committee that will meet regularly and that will take place for the first time in 3 weeks from now in Vigo, in EFTA. Equally important, the agencies will also have a common section on the respective work programs highlighting the priorities for the year to come. It was clearly stated by Director General and also Mr. Fabrikas that the cooperation, collaboration and using of best practices and existing resources is essentially important, and it also brings a lot of added value to the EU citizens. As Mr. Director General stated out, there are more than 300 national authorities in the EU expected to benefit directly or indirectly from the cooperation between EMSA, Frontex and EFTA on Coast Guard functions. For us at the European Maritime Safety Agency, this is not novelty. What changes now is the magnitude of our engagement. As prescribed by various pieces of EU legislation, EMSA since its inception directly supports national authorities performing Coast Guard functions in the areas that are the core task of our work: maritime safety, maritime security, and environmental protection, as well as ship surveillance and maritime accident and disaster response. We visit, we inspect, we train, we collect and fuse information, we offer learning tools, we share the best practices in many areas covered by the definition of Coast Guard function, and that is why this house is today familiar to many of you. Thanks to a series of investment in the past years, today the agency offers the EU maritime picture. EU and national stakeholders can rely today on the solid series of integrated information services tailored to the needs and individual users to know what is happening at sea. With fusing and integrating data from different sources, we offer a vast variety and array of solutions to support directly or indirectly most of the Coast Guard functions represented today in this room. It is in the spirit of the pilot project that we undertook the initiative to pilot for the first time in EU a new service which will be available in the near future. Remotely piloted aircraft system-based services to assist with multiple Coast Guard operations. 2 weeks ago, as foreseen by the pilot project, we ran a demonstration in Spain exploring the potential of the new service, and my colleagues later on will provide you with more info of this. The feedback received by participants from EU agencies and the national authorities was very positive, encouraging. We are now fine-tuning the technicalities, making this service fully available as part of our portfolio. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the presentations of today will certainly show that the pilot has been very successful and that we are on track with our joint operations, that the three agencies together are a reliable partner for all actors involved in Coast Guard functions, be it at EU or national level. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. And now, I would like to ask my
Honourable Member of the European Parliament, Director General Hololai, and all the directors and representatives from the Commission, from EU agencies and partner organizations, chairs and representatives from EMSA, EFCA, and Frontex governing and management boards, ambassadors and representatives of the EU member states in Lisbon, dear Marco, dear Pascal, ladies and gentlemen. It is also my pleasure today, on behalf of the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, to participate in this conference and to thank warmly EMSA colleagues for their hospitality and perfect organization. This is the second major Coast Guard event which the three agencies are organizing together since the entry into force of the agency's reinforced mandate in October last year. We started in November last year in Warsaw with a meeting of the European Coast Guard Cooperation Network, followed today in Lisbon by the EU Coast Guard Pilot Closing Conference, and we will surely meet in Vigo next year for our next annual major EU Coast Guard event. We, the three agencies, absolutely need the full support from our governance bodies and also from EU policymakers to be able to jointly deliver in implementing Coast Guard functions. In this sense, I warmly welcome the presence of Mr. Pabriks, Member of the European Parliament and Rapporteur for the European Border and Coast Guard Regulation, as well as the presence of Director General Hololai and other representatives from the EU member states and agencies, board members, and also the presence of the Executive Director of Satellite Center, which plays a role in this regard. The fact that we have here today members and representatives, and even chair, from the boards of the three agencies sitting together for the first time sends a strong signal on the development of European cooperation on Coast Guard functions. This demonstrates that the three agencies are not only engaging at operational level, we will come back to this later today, but also at institutional and strategic level. In a couple of weeks, Marco, Pascal, and I will meet again in Vigo to discuss and agree on our first annual strategic plan for 2018, as foreseen in the tripartite working arrangement concluded in March this year. The common annual strategic plan will become part of the agency's annual work programs and single programming documents to be adopted by the three management boards or governing boards. Hence, this is another good example of engagement at institutional and strategic level. Our new legal mandate for Coast Guard functions and the tripartite working arrangement derived from it is also complemented by an increasing number of service-level agreements signed between the agencies. These legal and financial instruments define the scope of the provision of services and financial conditions attached to them, always in dynamic of supporting and supported agency, which must be the general rule. Today we will review later on what was achieved during the last 12 months during this pilot project. And we will have to recognize that it would not have been possible without building upon an already excellent level of contacts and cooperation between the three agencies. Indeed, we were not starting from scratch. Our approach was very simple. Look at what we were doing already and see how this could be developed further and enhanced in the light of the new mandate that the EU legislator has given us. I must emphasize that all these activities have been implemented by using mainly existing and limited staff available in the agencies this year. Therefore, I want to express all my appreciation to the colleagues in the 3 agencies for all the excellent work done. I can neither be comprehensive nor conclusive when mentioning all what was achieved, given that the final reports for each of the tasks are still in the making. But let me make some remarks which perfectly align and complete the statements made by my predecessors. When it comes to task 1, information sharing, we definitely had a solid basis to build upon, namely the EMSA various services, information products and tools, including satellite imagery and maritime traffic information, which were tailored to meet Frontex needs for supporting the Member States' border control activities. This EMSA support package, which also includes FK-VMS data, which supports also FK-VMS data, has become integral part of what we denominate the Eurosur Fusion Service. And we have experienced this year a record high number of requests for activation of vessel detection service, an example of EMSA service, in all 3 major operational theaters, from the Black Sea region through the Mediterranean to the Atlantic coast. Information sharing comes closely together with the implementation of Task 2, Maritime Surveillance Services. The 3 of us are making here a strong innovation effort based on the 3 main components, using state-of-the-art technology for development of new capabilities, applying new concepts for operations, engaging various EU agencies and national authorities, ensuring multi-purpose use of the service capabilities. Frontex has tested this new concept with FCAR and Italian authorities in the so-called multi-purpose aerial service project, which will be presented later today. And another component is developing new approaches on procurement, allowing the use of the services by different agencies and building also a stronger relationship with our commercial partners. Our effort was concentrated on airborne capabilities, namely fixed-wing aircrafts and RPAs by EMSA, with the objective to fuse the information and data streams obtained from both types of platforms into our existing information systems and command and control structures. The next step will be to seamlessly integrate these aerial surveillance means into our maritime operations, complementing our seaborne surveillance capabilities. We are also boosting our seaborne capabilities by ensuring long-term deployment of government-owned vessels equipped with multinational crews, having the necessary range of expertise to be engaged in multi-purpose missions. Multi-purpose maritime operations, that means task number 4, has been already part of Frontex strategy. But thanks to the close partnership with FCAR and the reinforced Coast Guard mandate that helped both agencies to reach together an unprecedented new level. The concrete results will be presented later, but let me advance to you that the concept of multi-purpose operation has been fully validated thanks to our activities during this pilot. In practical terms, this means that we were able to use the surveillance systems and effectively exchange information such as presumed illegal fishing sightings with FCAR. We have been providing joint training and debriefings for relevant crew members, elaborated standard operating procedures, and developed best practices which can be promoted in the future. This leads me to task number 3, capacity building, where the 3 agencies have been able to pool expertise, best practices, and training products for preparing the outline of the guidelines on inter-EU agencies cooperation as main deliverable. These guidelines are the embryo of the practical handbook on European cooperation on Coast Guard functions, which the Commission is expected to adopt. The three agencies working together have a large potential as capacity building actors, not only for the EU member states, but also for our non-EU partners. Future work in this field will take into account, or even, where possible, integrate the valuable activities and projects implemented in the framework of the European Coast Guard Functions Forum. The comprehensive analysis of challenges and risks in the maritime domain goes beyond the area of responsibility of Frontex and involves aspects that are covered either by EMSA or by EFCA, and we will have to work further on that in the future. As a conclusion, according to what I understood from EU policymakers, the EU Coast Guard pilot project was supposed to be mainly a proof of concept for the proposed new mandate for the three EU maritime agencies. If this is indeed the case, then one can strongly state that the proof of concept has been fully validated. I hope that you will also be able to conclude after today's closing conference that, in fact, we are just at the opening phase and starting to grasp all the potential that the three agencies have when working together. Our combined mandates can address all relevant Coast Guard functions, allowing us to be comprehensive and not falling into the trap to develop the activities in silos. We must do this while being, at the same time, very respectful to the division of competences at EU and national level. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that the achievement delivered by our three agencies working together will convince you that collectively we can act as the EU Coast Guard, while optimizing the use of the EU taxpayers' money and ensuring EU citizens that they have safer seas and oceans, safer external borders all around the European Union. Let me thank again Marco Müller and Pascal Savouret for our excellent cooperation. I thank you very much for your attention and wish us a very fruitful conference.
Thank you very much, Fabrice, for your kind words. And as we heard from Fabrice, we have been acting in the 3 or 4 different tasks in this pilot project. Now it's time to extract those pilots and go to the practical results of the collaboration between the agencies. We start with the task 1, which is titled Information Sharing, and we have a presentation from EMSA. Our Head of Department Operations, Helene Palm, will give you a detailed explanation of what we have done on this task. Then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Yes, before going into the task, maybe it's also to sketch a little bit the process. And I will use my first slide for that. Of course, and I think it has been already said, it's not new cooperation between three agencies. As a matter of fact, the first service level agreement between EMSA and Frontex was signed in April 2013. So there's already a bit of history for the cooperation between the three. And also, not that much later, a similar arrangement has been signed with EFCA. Of course, the new legislative, the border package and what came out, and also the pilot project, gave an incentive to further increase the cooperation and to exploit even more synergies. And I think in that sense, it has proven very worthwhile, this process. It started more or less at the same time as the Commission presented the process for the border package, December 2015, when a contact group, a steering group was established in Brussels, with the 3 agencies and the 3 corresponding DGs of the Commission, DG Move, DG Home, and DG Mare. And of course, we had to find a way forward. And at that time, the article on Coast Guard cooperation contained 4 tasks. Only at the end of the legislative process, the 5th one was added. That was already too late because then the train already left regarding the cooperation between the agencies. And then we said, okay, to make it effective, let's see what are the strengths of all the agencies and to divide a bit the work and to appoint, let's say, an agency that coordinates one of the tasks. And that you see here on the screen, so at the very first meeting between the agency and the Commission, we discussed the 4 tasks and who would be, let's say, the most relevant agency to coordinate. And that's also reflected today in the program where each of the coordinating agencies will present the outcome of the tasks. So regarding sharing of information, indeed it is part of the new article in the 3 founding regulations, and refers very clearly to ship reporting systems and other information systems. And then I also would like to illustrate a bit what EMSA is collecting today and thereafter what we are doing with the other 2. So the objective under the task was to list the services, to do a kind of mapping exercise, what is already ongoing, and also to see where we can intensify the sharing of information as a new step with extra effort to be looking at added value at European level. So first of all, we made a document where we mapped the services that EMSA was providing to EFCA Frontex, but also to better understand what Frontex is doing for its member states, and the same for EFCA, and then to see how we can move forward with the cooperation. Going back to, let's say, the baseline, what is the type of information that EMSA is able to provide and what kind of magnitude are we talking about? So this is just a snapshot from data that we receive at EMSA on a daily basis. So roughly we receive 19 million ship positions per day from terrestrial AIS, mainly from the coastal stations around Europe, from the satellite AIS, long-range identification and tracking, and VMS, vessel monitoring system, which mainly is a system to follow fishing vessels. I think one of the complete results already, and I also mentioned that on the slide, is the extra effort that EFCA did in approaching their member states, because it's flag state data. So the member states that have fishing vessels should agree to sharing their data with others. And I think EFCA did a very good job in approaching their members of their member state board, writing letters, pushing them, explaining them about the cooperation between the 3 agencies, and making it possible to share that data with Frontex and EMSA for the purposes of their activities. And I think that has been largely successful. So I think there's already a very concrete and positive outcome of this task. So besides ship positioning data, we also look very much at satellite information. So EMSA has a whole suite of contracts with commercial operators that can deliver satellite data for which we have a channel procedure in place so that we can quickly activate commercial satellites for where it is needed. We have a number of ground stations in Europe so that we are able to collect the data in near real time. Of course, we have different outputs from our observation center. With Frontex, we have a direct link, and under the SLA it was made possible. For EFCA, it was in the beginning a little bit more difficult because there was no budget available. But I think what was very good that Copernicus came into existence and the services were started. And under the Maritime Surveillance Services, where EMSA is the entrusted entity, we were able to, let's say, enrich our service to EFCA and also add an Earth observation component to the information we are providing to them. And it was very helpful. So then, thanks to Copernicus, we can, let's say, enrich the service and could bring EFCA on the same footing as Frontex. Another, I think, unknown outcome of mainly the border package, not so much the pilot project, is the provision of satellite AIS information, which I think is an important additional information set for the maritime picture. And by the time that the border package was discussed, we had a problem at EMSA because we started this provision of data with the European Space Agency, and we started to run out of budget. And we didn't have any budget anymore to continue with the service, which was also highly needed by three agencies. And by having this as part of the border package, as one of the elements that was carried forward in the legislative proposal, we were able to do a new procurement last year so that we can offer kind of continuation of this data also to the other two for another 4 years' time, at least until 2020. And I think that has been, it's a bit unknown, but I think it is a big success also that we are able to continue to give this data. So we have a contract with a company that has 16 satellites, 16 Earth stations, that can give global coverage. And why global coverage is important, although we speak about the Coast Guard, some of our tasks are not really restricted to the coast, and that certainly applies to EFCA. EFCA does fishery control operations almost worldwide, also far out on the ocean, where the behavior of EU fishing vessels need to be checked. So in that sense, also for the tasks of the agency, global data is highly needed, and with this contract we are able to provide that. Going into the service provision, the cooperation between the three agencies, I took last year as an example, just to give you the magnitude of data that we have provided to Frontex. So as you can see here, from terrestrial AIS, we have given 1.5 billion ship positions to Frontex last year, 6 million LRT messages, 66 million satellite AIS messages, and over 1,000 satellite images. So you can see that it's an enormous magnitude of data that's being provided on a daily basis, for which of course more structural procedures have to be put in place. But I think already this enormous flow of data illustrates how important the cooperation between the three agencies is. And we even had to build a specific IT module at EMSA to be able to do this automatically. You can imagine that with so much data, we are not speaking about manual intervention anymore. It's so big, it's so large, that it has to be fully automated. So based on the ship positioning data, the 4 color boxes on the bottom, where VMS data comes from EFCA, and on the left-hand side you see the Earth observation images. We have already, of course, a processing capability in EMSA, but we needed to extract the data for Frontex. Also because Frontex works with a bit of a different data format, so we also have to translate the information into data formats that can be used by Frontex systems. So actually we built a kind of data mining module in EMSA, according to what has been agreed, that can extract the data from the EMSA systems, make a kind of wake at sea. So on the image you can see, because of the changes in the pattern of the waves, you can see how the fishing vessels have been operating in that area. I think that was something which I never thought of, that it was possible to see that with satellite images. So I think we also still discover new opportunities and new possibilities with the technology that we have. Optical satellite images, of course you need nice weather, otherwise you don't see anything. In the Mediterranean, of course, you quite often have nice weather, so that's helpful. Certainly for the bluefin tuna and the fish cages that are being used, optical images are quite useful to see what kind of fishing activities is going. And then last point, there's also an interest to see what the EU ships are doing, EU fleet, and also to monitor third country ports, which also optical images can be utilized. So under task 1, of course, we identified the services that can be better shared between the agencies. It has been formally completed under the pilot project, but of course the work has not finished. There's still potential. I think it already has been said, it is also, let's say, a starting point of more cooperation which is possible. We also try to test and validate the products that we are giving. And I think that's quite interesting. So, especially with Frontex, we organize exercises where we take a satellite image over a particular area, where we have vessels operated, so we know exactly which vessels are there. These are quite of vessels that Frontex is mobilized. And then we can check if the satellite image really detects the vessels that are in that area. So then you can do kind of quality check if the satellite image really detects all the information that you expect to be there. And that helps also to further improve the system and the service. We bring this information back to the satellite owners and satellite providers, and we confirm them with the results. So if there are non-detected vessels that we for sure knew that they were there, we also go back and say, hey, really look at this. How can it be that you did not detect these vessels? And that also will help with this kind of ground truth to improve the usage of this type of technology. And last but not least, of course, we can further develop, and I think there are also ideas, and certainly also with the intelligence, so the algorithms for abnormal behavior. I think there's still some way to go, and there are more potential functionalities that we can develop together to the, I think, the benefit of all the communities. And there, even also for the maritime safety community, this type of intelligence can also be very useful if you want to, for example, see traffic if they comply with vessel traffic schemes. It also helps to have this information. So to bring more intelligence you need, because we have now these days so much data that it's almost impossible for an operator to really grasp all the data by let's say, the human eye. So you need to have help of the computer to assist you by doing your job. And that's very much what we are developing and what we can continue to develop over time. What else did we do in the task one? We did a data mapping exercise to clarify what are the data streams, to whom is the data going, and how is it being dealt with. It's a bit small print, but just to illustrate, I don't think you have to see the details. And we agreed also on KPIs for the service delivery, so that we have also kind of standards on whose basis we are offering information. We are offering information for operational services, so we want to make sure that the services are reliable and sustainable and really delivered on time. So we need to measure very closely that what we deliver to the others really continues to suit operational needs. So I think that has been the main work in the 1.5 year time that we had in task one. So we have consolidated the 5 services to Frontex. We have the integrated maritime services for FCAR, which we have now enriched with also Copernicus. Frontex and EMSA are very happy with the VNS data that is now provided via FCAR. And I think already here you can see the clear benefits of joint cooperation. And of course all this data also went into task 4 of the multi-purpose operations, which will be introduced by Frontex later today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leonard. He's effective as normal, as usual, and we are a bit ahead of our schedule, so there is a possibility for questions if you have any. So feel free, raise your hand if you have any questions to Leonard at this point. It seems that you were very clear with your presentation, so I propose that we keep this 15 minutes to what we have in our back pocket, and we go for a coffee now, and we continue 11:30 sharp here in this corridor. Thank you.
for this pilot project, we were not involved in any coordination because Lennart wanted to coordinate with us, and so capacity building was not for us to coordinate. It was
Imagine, in the old times you had 20 kilos of camera, now you can do it with 500 grams.
Yeah, you've seen me using my iPhone.
Yeah.
It's actually absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Voila.
If you would like to share with us your comments on the results of the pilot project and also your opinion on the progress of the interagency cooperation on Coast Guard functions between Frontex, EFCA and EMSA, please.
I think that the pilot project has been a good success, and it has also shown how much additional value can be achieved when the agencies work closely together and bring in the areas of expertise where they have the largest competence. And the pilot... Whoops!
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Not at
Oh,
all.
Jesus.
Okay.
If I'm behind it?
Yes, you can be behind it. That's fine.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
No, you can cut it off afterwards, yeah?
Yes.
I believe that the nature of the pilot project is really to try to show that the concept of European Coast Guard functions is and can be a very successful concept. It is something where the Council and the Parliament have decided that Europe needs to move on, and the pilot project has proved that Europe not only will move on, it can also very successfully do that. Interagency cooperation is also essential. We have a lot of agencies which are concentrating on their own area, but the real value added can be brought if the different agencies are working together. In DG Move, we have 3 very important safety agencies, for example, EMSA, EASA and ERA. And we also do a lot in order to make them work together, because there are many issues of horizontal nature where the experiences one agency has can be very useful for the other. Here, in this context, we have seen EMSA, Frontex and the EFCA working together, and this has also proved to be a good success. It also gives much more interaction between the agencies and also gives the possibility to learn from each other. So that's why I believe that pilot has done 2 good things. First of all, it has shown that the European Coast Guard function is something where the European value added can be achieved, and secondly, it has also made the agencies work even more closer together and bring the benefits to Europe, to its citizens and also its businesses.
Perfect.
You've done this before, obviously.
A lot. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
We have to secure this.
Yeah. But that's good, no? You've done a good job.
No. The others we will film later, because I want them to hear more.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
You too. Have a good day, sir.
So not now during coffee break, but afterwards, because they stay for the whole day. So it would be, we will do it probably in the afternoon break, if you think that the light would be okay.
Whenever.
Otherwise.
So basically, I leave this here. You see, it is. I just cut this. This stays here. Or we can move it. You know, we have one there, and then we do another one somewhere else.
Another
So
setting.
we have diversity.
Yeah, because then
The
the
light.
afternoon the sun will be here shining.
Yeah, yes. So
straight
we'll
into-
find another place.
Okay.
Okay. So,
And
when do we start again?
15 minutes ahead, 11.
11:30. I need to drink something.
Yes, I also.
Please.
No, sorry.
Welcome in.
Thank you very much.
topic of discussion. And of course, we do have inputs from the military, but the issue is to what extent you can also address other sectors. That's why he was very interested.
No, I think if you want to have a
Even
more
though I think it
multi-purpose
was,
approach.
yeah, it was focused on small.
That seems very strange in this environment.
Maybe.
It should be a fast track approach instead.
Yes.
And this was also done by Lender in his presentation as well. You know,
Your art! She's super nice. She should be ours.
Yeah, you try that and we'll see what happens. It's fantastic. It's very local, you could say. It's like living in a Spanish.
Mais là, j'ai un professionnel, regarde, tu vois.
Non, après, ça c'est pour te faire chanter après.
Tu peux. Non, mais là, je suis en cravate et tout, il n'y a pas grand chose.
Oui, j'ai le reste à la maison.
How much trouble you should have to identify all these guys running around.
We met the day before yesterday our president of the federal police. He gave a situational picture about the security at the moment, and it was not easy. And the election and all this doesn't matter in this case. And migrants, of course, we have a lot. We will include them. We are able to include them. We have to. But the problem is which background they have.
No, the integration perspective in general, and I think we have with our Russians too, and this is one thing. The other thing is first, until you get them on the board, until you know who they are, and then the thing is that, well, you will be forced, you have to send a lot of them back. This is not, it's nothing to do with human rights, you have to send numbers of them back.
Dat is een techniek, je moet een goede piloot zijn. Als je die impact probeert, gewoon van, als die ergens tegenaan knalt, is gigantisch.
Tegen mensen of tegen
De 747 die is dus 4 meter breed. Hè.
Je ziet dat bij een beurthit al
mooi is, want dat mag weer.
Nee, dat hebben we nog nooit. Gewoon het allergrootste probleem hebt en je kan van alles regelen, maar voordat je daar de fatsoenlijke handhaving op zet. Dat is trouwens ook boeiend, hè? Van al even van. We hadden een bepaald moment een discussie met het ministerie van Veiligheid en Justitie, want die hadden namelijk een tender uitgezet.
And then we have Dr. Malinovsky from Frontex. He is the team coordinator of Situation Center and coming from Operations Division. So, gentlemen, we can start. Thank you.
Introduce the State of Play regarding directive. So, what was our main purpose of the pilot project? Is to organize a demonstration to test the concept of operations for multi-purpose missions. I think it's quite novel. It's innovation brought by the border package. Sorry? Okay. So as part of the border package, this sounds not very nice. We're talking about remote pilot aircraft systems. What we really see as added value is filling a gap between what satellites can offer, but most of the satellites are orbiting, so they continue, then you only have a short moment on the area of interest, and also to bridge the limited range of patrol assets that can also not always be there, and so that it takes a lot of time to be on the right place. From show everything at the same time. Of course, there are a lot of characteristics. I'm not going to deal with that now. There are a number of operational advantages working with Airbus, which is nice, and we all know that on paper. But now it was good to also test that in practice to see how it works, how we can take full benefit out of this instrument and full benefit out of the sensor data from Airbus. And that has been very much the purpose of the exercise. Is to see if all the assumptions that we put here also come out in practice. So, the objectives, to test the concept of operations, as you mentioned, The real-time testing of technical capabilities, sorry, until now we have been dealing with AirPass, but very much in a preparatory fashion, and we never did a real operational exercise to see under real conditions what the added value can be. And also the decision-making process is important. You need to guide. It's an interesting tool, but you need to guide to take the optimum out of it. And that's also important, for which we do not have that much experience, to test and to see how this is working. So we were happy to be able in late May, or mid-May, sorry, to organize an operation covering a full week, so 7 days, in which we did 8 flights and performed more than 24 flight hours. That was of course a partnership between the 3 agencies and hosted by the Research Institute of the Spanish Ministry of Defense and with the great support of other Spanish authorities. So in that sense, I think the demo was also a very good sign of cooperation at national level between all the institutions that have an interest in Spain, and also, for example, Customs and the Safety Agency SACEMAR. We were providing the means at sea to also to perform the scenarios. I'll come back to that a bit later. In those 7 days, we did one open day in Huelva, where we had 10 EU member states coming, which was quite an achievement because it's not so easy to reach. So I will congratulate those representatives that they were able to make it and be there to see what we were doing. Of course, we were there together with 3 agencies, but also colleagues from the Defense Agency, from AON, and USATCENT were there. So that was great also for them to see the type of tests that we have been doing. We had the possibility to test 2 systems, a fixed-wing aircraft that had to use a runway, and we had a small drone using catapult, so that we could also see a bit the difference in technology and also to see how their equipment was working. Here again, you see the 2 systems we were able to test over the 7 days period. Well, it's not so easy to illustrate, but I think was an important element of the whole exercise is how to steer and to take the optimum out of the systems. So here on the top, right and left, you see the ground control systems of the 2 airpass, and left bottom, you see my 2 colleagues that are near the end of the hall, that were simulating the member state, giving the operational commands for the airpass operations. And there we have also issues about the quality of data, the communications, and that was really very labor intensive, but also very critical for the success of the whole exercise. So I think it was not very visible to the participants, but I think there was a lot of effort into steering the airpass, doing the right things, which was very important. And there I think for EMSA, there was a great lesson learned in how to deal with those operations to really get the maximum out of it. So the baseline were 5 co-ops, concept of operations that were developed. We had type of source channel surveillance, marine pollution, really identifying a vessel, search and rescue, support search and rescue, and also monitoring illegal activities. Those 5 co-ops have been a bit transformed into flight scenarios. So each of the systems had to do the phases as being described here in the next slides, so to test and to compare their performance. So we did generic surveillance, they had to find as soon as possible a particular vessel, identify and track a fast trip, also identify fishing activities, and we did a number of those exercises with them. It seems really to see what is the operational use, also for search and rescue, a man overboard, life raft, and even detection of oil spill. So we bought a lot of fish oil that we put into the sea, so to simulate an oil spill, and then to see if the airpass and the system was able to detect, to follow the oil spill. So we really try to make it as realistic as possible, We had also a dummy. You can see at the right bottom of the picture, the man overboard. So we had a dummy in the sea to represent a drowning man, and to see how fast the drones were able to detect. But it made it also very realistic, and we could then really see for all the purposes what benefit it could bring. And, but not least, we also had some flights during the night to see the performance of the sensors during night time. It's nice to do it during the day when the sun is shining, but of course we also want to see the performance of the sensors when the situation is a bit less favorable. In any case, I think it was a very good test because it was extremely windy. So, and then I think I also was very much impressed by the stability of the images that we got, because it was very, very windy, and both systems were really providing very stable images to the control stations. So we made a small video to illustrate a bit this demo. Then you will see how the two systems are operating. Also we'll see some examples of the scenarios that have been carried out. Interesting regarding the, for example, illegal transshipment, we did two types of tests. One was handing packages from one ship to another. So for example, the drugs transport, that you hand over a package to, and then the drone had to see how many packages were really handed over. But we did also the same exercise, which you do not see in the video, where packages were dumped into the sea. It also happens quite often. A ship comes in an area, they dump the drugs, then take off, and then another ship comes in and picks it up. Then the drone had to find out how many packages were dumped into the sea. So with all these types of scenarios, we really have a realistic impression of the capabilities of the drones. So I talked too much, so now it's more than time to watch a short video that gives you an impression of this demo.
Surveying the monitoring views of these services. Just as we do.
Our party not elected space. In fact, we have been working from certification and qualification point of view.
The use of RPAs for us, I think it's exercise area, a safe area, and special corridor connecting lanes of one of the contractors.
There are the communication segment, etc. So that's the air segment. Then you have the local ground segment, which is
using today is called the Scan Eagle. It's 5 feet long, 10 feet wide. It can fly in.
What's happening aboard the ship? That I think was also one of the very nice things that we found out being there. That really the capabilities even sometimes go beyond our own imagination and really brought very good results. And on the bottom you see a night image by infrared. What I have to say, I use this slide also to thank the team who's sitting in the back for a great job. I think they have spent many hours there to make everything work, also to guide the drones, which was extremely important to make the stereos work. So I think that was very helpful for us, although I think they're still tired from the whole exercise. But it was a very good job, and also gave us also the better view how to prepare concept of operations. So I think we are now in a better position to also assist member states using the systems, because we now better understand also the operational challenges to take the full benefit out of the Airbus systems and the sensors. I think that has been a very important lesson for us. So with this demo, I think again, certainly by drafting also the concept of operations, it was good training for 3 agencies, and also again a good demonstration that multiple and multi-purpose missions can be very successful and useful. Of course, again, thank you to the Spanish authorities. The Airbus data really contributes a lot to the maritime picture, and I think it really can help to bridge the gap that we still have in our surveillance needs today. So we hope really that based on this experience we can move forward to operational services in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard. It was a very impressive video of the Rebus activities. We have a bit time, so if there is any ad hoc questions to Leonard, so feel free to ask. Please, gentlemen.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. I'm here as an EFCA board member, but the question is of a personal nature. Thank you. I'm wondering, are there any data protection issues arising from this type of use of this type of system? For example, there are rules in European legislation on the operation of CCTV systems, for example, where you have to state the purpose, you have to have management rules for protection of data and so on and so on. Does it apply to the type of data you're gathering from these type of assets? Thank you.
The purpose, of course, to make these data available to member states that are interested. So when it's been given to you as a national authority, of course the national data protection rules will apply. I don't think those rules will be very different from manned aircraft and unmanned aircraft. So in that sense, there are no specific rules in addition to what already is in place.
Thank you for that answer. My perspective was more from the point of view of the individual citizen. So the CCTV regulations and the data protection legislation is intended to have a balance of the use of surveillance systems and the rights of the individuals to privacy and so on. So that was more from that point my question.
I think again there is no difference between manned aircraft, which we already use on a daily basis. So many member states have surveillance operations with manned aircraft, where you have exactly the same data that you capture with aircraft. But personally, I'm always surprised because you capture the same data, but when you take the pilot out, it suddenly becomes a problem. And I don't think that's a bit of a misperception that without the pilot suddenly is dangerous and then the protection of privacy data suddenly emerges. But I think the same rules apply when you have a manned aircraft, surveillance flight, or an unmanned aircraft. I don't see the difference.
Thank you very much for the question and clarification from the left side. Any other questions at this point? Colleague? Pascal?
Yes, thank you, Marco. What is interesting also is counter detection range. So I understand that the drone was not noticed, for example, by the fishing vessel. What is the counter detection range in normal weather, I would say, from the target, I would say, at which the range should approach the drone to be detected visually, I would say.
It depends very much on which system you're using. So I think what also the man on the video tried to explain with the scanning, they have these two systems. So they have the EO camera that really focuses. They have also kind of a secondary sensor in the back that is a kind of sweep. And that goes quite far. And we talk about 20-30 kilometers on both sides, where it sweeps objects. And once you detect objects, you zoom in with the EO camera. So the combination is very powerful to be able to have a far range of surveillance. And then we have the possibility to look at the specific spot.
Thank you for this. There's one gentleman raising the hand over there. Can you please take the mic?
Thank you, Donald Trump, Swedish Coast Guard. Maybe I can help to bring some light to the question raised about the authority and the possibility to use the information gathered from this type of systems. The difference, as I understand it, between the system that is presented is that in the normal manned aircraft from a competent authority, the Swedish Coast Guard, for example, are authorized personnel. Can you say something about the way of operating this system? Because I think that is the key to understand the difference between the possibility to assemble information and to use the information assembled by this aircraft. You need to have authorized personnel according to the national legislation. So that could be the issue maybe that we need to ask about. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think it's a good question because that also allows me to clarify how the services should operate. So it's not EMSA or Frontex that out of the blue starts to survey something. No, it should be at the request of the member state, and data should go to the member state. When it goes to the member state, again, it will follow exactly what you say. You have an authorized user. So it's not something that we put out in the open. It's dedicated data which is protected, which will give to the authorized user. The authorized user, depending on national legislation, will follow the rules in place.
Very good. I think this is a very sensitive question, and there will be further discussion around this topic and continue about that. Okay, Leonard, thank you very much again for your presentation, and now we can continue to our next presenter, Mr. Piotr Malinovsky from Frontex. Please.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present another big pillar of Task 2, which is fixed-wing aircraft surveillance capabilities. Before I go to tangible operational results and a real operational example of the use of those capabilities, I will spend a few minutes to explain a little background about the certain contracts that Frontex has today to provide those capabilities. So first of all, there is a need for aerial surveillance, and this need is of course especially important in maritime domain. We all know that there is member state capabilities and associated countries of capabilities in this regard. At the same time, we identified certain gaps that can be filled by additional framework contract that Frontex signed to provide certain aerial capabilities in the domain of maritime and land surveillance. Those capabilities are not to replace member state capabilities, they are rather to top up those capabilities. To give you a good example, from a few days ago, one of the member states has to withdraw their asset airplane from one of our joint operations. And the only way to close this gap and to have any other asset in this operation, we go to this framework contract to try to establish a plane which will cover this gap created by withdrawal of the aerial asset by member state. So there is a certain gap that we want to cover. At the same time, we want to have faster reaction capability. Basically, if there is an urgent need to deploy aerial surveillance asset, we want to make sure that it can be done fast, in organized or pre-organized way according to established procedures and processes. So we came to the conclusion there is a need for a framework contract which will allow us to close this gap and also to provide fast reaction capabilities. And in 2015, Frontex signed certain framework contracts with selected companies which are able to provide those capabilities. Those capabilities, of course, can be used in Frontex coordinated joint operations. At the same time, they can be used in any other activity which requires aerial surveillance, of course, according to certain legal frameworks. So, all agencies' needs can be covered by that, multi-purpose operations, and all other needs in respect to this domain. The structural framework contract we have today is a 10 million budget. Most of the budget goes to maritime domain, the maritime operations, 8.5 million. 1.5 million goes to land domain. It's structured 2 + 2 years, so for the next 2 years, because we started in 2015. We are working right now to have a new contract that will, based on the lessons learned we have, it will change our capabilities in this domain. Our framework contracts, or this framework contract is divided into 2 lots. Lot 1 is maritime operations, lot 2 is land operations, and as you see on the slide, there are a list of companies who were awarded those contracts. There is a mixture from different member states. We want to diversify that to make sure that it's not at every single moment mechanism to order. We diversify that. Okay, that was just to give you kind of background information. Right now we'll go to a tangible example of how we use those framework contracts and how they can be used. So we came to the concept to use fixed-wing aircraft as a pilot project under the Coast Guard pilot project that we have in the Mediterranean Sea in March and April 2017. The idea was to have a multi-purpose area surveillance missions which will cover Frontex and EFTA needs in certain domains. Important for us was to have a real-time streaming of data, not only to ground state. On Coast Guard functions, but also we have strong mandate with respect to Eurosur regulation, which gives us opportunity to use aerial surveillance for pre-frontal monitoring and also for common application of surveillance. So extremely strong legal basis which can be used for this kind of activities. For this particular project, for those 2 months, or even it was not 2 months, it was March and April, but 2 weeks in March, 2 weeks in April, we wanted to we wanted to use those capabilities in 3 domains: search and rescue, fishery control, and cross-border crime. That was the aircraft used in this activity, DA-42 MDP, extremely powerful aircraft with really good payload with respect to sensors. If we look at sensors on board, we have, of course, air observation, infrared sensors, maritime surveillance radar, AIS receiver. Final product received from this aircraft was a HD video stream, but also, what is the most important, integrated situational picture from all the sensors on board. So not only video, but also integration of AIS data, integration of all the data which is collected by this aircraft with the sensors on board. In this particular activity, we're using satellite communication if there was no VHF radio or any other channel available, and also voice and chat. So at every single moment, the team in operational center in Warsaw was able to communicate with pilot, also communicate with a sensor operator on board, and the representative of the respective agency on board. I will come back to that later, but it's important that at every single moment we have a person from a respective authority on board the aircraft. So, a little details about this particular activity. Frontex, Fishery Control Agency, NCC Italy, MRCC Italy. Those are the 4 main contributors to this activity. Apart of that, we have big support and positive support from Maltese authorities because plane was stationed there in Malta. So I would like to use this opportunity to thank for that. Activity took place from 27 March till April. We had 2 flights per day, so 30 hours per day in total. As I said, flight from Malta, which all was coordinated by member states. This slide is kind of conceptual to present what I was talking before about having a specialized personnel in one single room. So data from airplane was coming directly to Frontex, where we had a European coordination center, where we had a search and rescue duty officer. That was the person deployed by Italian MRCC, Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, so person specialized in search and rescue activities. We have fishery control duty officer, person deployed by our colleagues from EFTA for everything related to fishery controls. And we have law enforcement duty officer, person deployed by Italian National Coordination Center and also some personnel from Frontex to support that. Those officers were at every single moment analyzing what is coming to European Coordination Center from the aircraft, and comparing this data with the data from databases. So in this case, search and rescue officer could at every single moment consult MRCC databases. Fishery control officer at the same time could check in EFTA databases, and law enforcement officer could check law enforcement databases. So if something was happening, we could immediately assess it from those 3 dimensions. most of our main target for this particular exercise was fishery control, so most of the attention was put there. But if you have multi-purpose flight, you analyze everything what is happening from the context of those three domains. Because at every single moment, you might have search and rescue incident, you might have fishery control incident, or law enforcement incident. So it's important to have those people together in one single room. At the same time, we had on board the plane specialized officer or from fishery control agency or from law enforcement, depending on the target or the main target of the flight. This officer's role was to kind of coordinate everything what is happening on board the plane and also make sure that everything is done according to European regulations in respect to data protection, etc., etc. Another extremely important element of this setup is that data stream is not only seen and sent to a European coordination center, it's also at the same time, in real time, distributed to respective authorities involved in the exercise. So, in case of search and rescue, it's not only officer in Warsaw who was deployed by MRCC Italy. At the same time, data stream was going to MRCC. Why? Because in case there is something which requires to trigger search and rescue activities, then Maritime Rescue Coordination Center could have a live stream from the scene. Something which is in many cases not possible with other means. The same with law enforcement. If there was something which would trigger follow-up by member state in respect to law enforcement activities, Italian National Coordination Center could have a live data stream from the scene. And the same from fishery control perspective. Data stream was available in Vigo for a kind of extended check. It also, of course, supports the idea that if there is something which requires a little deeper analysis, it's not only one person in Warsaw from the agency or from member state authorities. It's also an entire structure back at home which can basically analyze what is seen on the screen and support decision-making process. Which is the most important thing here, because in few minutes, those people in this room, they have to decide. And sometimes those decisions will impact maybe lives of people on board if we talk about search and rescue, or maybe a big drug handling case, etc., etc. So it's important to have as many eyes as possible looking into that and checking if the decision is right. What is important, and it's connected with other tasks under Coast Guard pilot project, that this activity is directly connected with task 1 and task 4. So first of all, data from this particular activity was immediately inserted in a JORA system from main Frontex systems to handle joint operation. At the same time, it was compared and integrated with a vessel traffic of interest service which is provided to Frontex by EMSA, with vessel monitoring services which are provided by EMSA to Frontex. And also maritime simulation module was used to kind of figure out where the objects can be in the next hours and things like that. So at the end of the day, what we had is that in one single holistic situational picture, we had data which we received from EMSA under task 1, data which we received from Frontex joint operations under task 4, and data which we received under task 2 from maritime surveillance. So all of that together in one single holistic situational picture, which is, as you know, one of the key components of having a real understanding of what is happening on the ground in respect to border management. Operational results. Well, we were able to cover quite a large area. The reaction response delay.
Once more. We are exactly on the time schedule, so we have lunch waiting for us in the cafeteria.
It's
great fun. So that's beautiful and that's fun, you know. And then you don't worry so much about the temperature. But like in Greece, you give it 20 degrees. You know, you just.
But you are station permanent.
Yeah, well, I'm now on a permanent contract. Je zag vandaag al het verschil tussen zo'n vliegtuig wat van de grond vertrekt en dat weer op de grond moet landen.
Sinceramente no es posible hacer mejor que lo que nos hemos presentado. No es posible. Después es la cuestión del precio. Pero nuestro precio no es...
You can't be a candidate. He looked yesterday at the observer position.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, yes.
No.
Yes, it was for Director General, correct one.
No.
So he can't, yeah.
Director General needs to have
Or was it?
No.
And you supported with your means, with the infrastructure.
I do appreciate you.
No, but it's true.
Believe me, this is not that much.
Look, apparently in Denmark they were so enthusiastic, and now for Andreas it's not that easy to have this permit to fly tonight.
But this permits to fly are, you know, this is for a demonstration.
The Greeks apparently they
if that happens, then at least you can start. And I think then it will be kind of snowball effect. Once you will start and others will see, and we can do a bit of feedback from those missions. Then, although I'm not complaining about the interest, I was positively surprised by how many member states came forward to EMSA being interested in.
Cheers.
Oggi la foto di sistemi sono să fac schimbări personal, eu am venit și de la Olimp.
Sì, secondo cominciato. Cheers. E quindi vanno a Monterosso anziché a Senigallia. Hanno cominciato? Tutto cominciato con te? No, ma proprio i mandriloni liguri, andiamo là.
Okay. Yeah, that is good. Okay. Yeah, so that we don't duplicate. Okay, good. Ready to go?
And it's rolling.
Okay. European Coast Guard Function pilot project has come to an end. We have been collaborating with EMSA, EFCA and Frontex intensively for the 9 months period, and it's clearly shown the added value and need for collaboration also in the future.
Okay, let's do it another time, but you're gonna pull back a little bit because your hair shines too much.
Ah!
I'm shining. I'm sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah.
A little bit. I mean, like, so we don't have the too much the sun. Because you see, you're too tall. So let me redo this. I want this nice logo from EMSA somewhere in the picture, and I have a nice
European Coast Guard Function pilot project has been up and running for the 9 months, and now we have a concluding event which clearly has demonstrated the need for collaboration and how it brings added value to the 3 agencies and to the stakeholders.
Done.
Okay.
Beautiful. It's rolling.
So I'm very happy to be here in EMSA in Lisbon for celebrating the outcome of the pilot project on the EU Coast Guard undertaking. It has been a good way of improving the cooperation among the 3 agencies in support of the member state authority in charge of Coast Guard and to some extent border control. We have divided the task into 4 areas. The most important for EFCA, European Fishery Control Agency has been the delivery of the outline of guidelines for a sectoral qualification framework for Coast Guard. And the second very important task was the cooperation with Frontex and EMSA as well in the framework of sharing capacity. So developing some joint operation with patrol vessel and aircraft in the Mediterranean Sea. The action has been very intensive in 2016 and beginning of 2017, and on a FCA perspective, it has been a way of improving our information intelligence and dealing with cases of illegal fishing in the Mediterranean Sea.
C'est parfait.
Merci.
Merci, monsieur.
De son...
Rolling. Donc j'ai reculé un petit peu pour pas avoir trop la lumière. Voilà, c'est parfait. Alors il faut qu'on vous pose des questions.
Je sais pas, il y a quelqu'un qui pose une question.
Radina?
Could you please give your comments on the outcome of the project, as well as how this project has contributed to enhancing the cooperation between the three agencies in the area of Coast Guard cooperation?
Well, this pilot project gave the possibility to the three agencies, so EMSA, FCA and Frontex, to work together and to go very in detail in the operational business. So we were now...
Oui, et je vais vous demander, en plus de ça, excusez-moi de vous mettre dans l'IR, mais là, le soleil est juste vous et j'ai juste le bout de votre nez et votre front qui est éclairé. Là, c'est parfait.
D'accord, d'accord. Well, this pilot project was a very challenging project, but it was extremely successful. It brought together operational people from the three agencies, from EMSA, FCA, Frontex. We were able to test, for instance, multi-purpose patrolling activities in the context of Frontex operation, together with a fisheries inspector on board. We were also able to test our ability to report to EMSA cases of pollution at sea. I think this paved the way for a more integrated border management from my perspective, from the perspective of Frontex. But I'm quite sure that from the perspective of the other partners agencies, EMSA and FCA, this can pave the way to strengthen maritime surveillance, law enforcement at sea, and this is how we are building gradually an EU Coast Guard.
Perfect.
Parfait.
So we will of course come back on the task 1 and task 2 were
So concerning the objectives of this task 3, so first of all, we often refer to this idea of developing guidelines, so that was indeed one element, one important element in the context of the pilot project, the development of outline of guidelines. So this is an important that we have to clarify in the very beginning of the project. We have not developed the content of the guideline as such, but we focus more on the structure, the outline of the guidelines, which are to be developed in the context of this guidelines handbook of the Commission. So the idea was first of all to have an agreement on the structure of these future guidelines. Concerning the content or the purpose of this exercise, was mainly to provide guidance on this EU agencies cooperation. The idea being to, already at this stage, try to include information which would be as practical as possible. So we'll come back to that in 2 days after. But the idea was to already include the information concerning contact details, the operational organization in the agencies, and also some elements of best practices, expertise that are already implemented by the three agencies. As I said, the outline of guidelines, this reflection on the content of the future guidelines on inter-EU agencies cooperation was not the only one, the only task that we had to start the reflection. We also had preliminary discussion with colleagues on this idea of having voluntary staff exchange, the idea of exchanging staff between the different agencies, and also on training. More specifically, the idea was to discuss the possibility to have joint training courses between two or the three agencies, so joint training courses, but also trying to determine which training courses would be of relevance for agency staff. So we have, I would say, on the training, we have this reflection, trying to identify these existing courses that would be of mutual interest for the different agency staff, but also trying to have a reflection, already a preliminary reflection, on this idea of organizing joint training courses between our three agencies. So, concerning this outline of guidelines, as I said, the pilot project really started at the beginning of 2016. So we had, in fact, two phases in that project. The first phase, during the first half of 2016, was to carry out a mapping of the existing elements in the three agencies. So first of all, to start with the very beginning, we circulated tables between the three agencies to identify clearly what was the organization in each of the three agencies. The organization, organigram, of course, but the elements concerning the functioning of each agency, and to identify who does what in each organizational unit, which means to each unit level. So this was done in the three for the three agencies, and this is an element which has been annexed to the draft outline that we have developed. So very practical information, contact details, names, and area of responsibility in each organization. So it was one first mapping exercise that was carried out. The second one was easier because we already, as was previously mentioned, we already had certain areas of cooperation between the three agencies. So here, the idea was to identify the different existing SLAs, so the three existing SLAs that we have between the three agencies. We'll come back on that also. And finally, so third phase of this mapping exercise, trying to list all available Coast Guard related handbooks and guidelines which are already implemented by the different agencies. Implemented, it means still under development or already published for all kind of users or for only specific end users. So that was the first part of the exercise, this mapping, where we're collecting information from the other agencies. So concerning the development phase, here, as I said, moving from the mapping to the development, based on the materials that we had collected, we have started, as from summer 2016, we have started really the development of the guidelines as such. So the first phase of this development was, from our side, to select experts on this. It's true that not all agencies had the expertise on this specific question. So from our side, from FK side, we published in July 2016 a call for expression of interest to have already this kind of Coast Guard experts that could work for this specific project. So this was published in July 2016. From EMSA and Frontex side here, the idea was to designate their own internal expert, or for Frontex to use an external expert, taking into already existing list of experts which will be used in Frontex. So first phase, I would say, designation, selection of these experts, internal or external. Then we, as from September, October, initiated the drafting phase. So we had already identified in the activity agreed by the contact group, decided to have development workshops. So we had a first development workshop in October last year here in ENSA with a colleague from ENSA, where we already had a discussion on the scope, on the objective of this outline. We had the second development workshop, so here it was in November 2016, again here in ENSA, with all the experts designated by the agencies, training now at this stage to go a bit more into the drafting phase of the project. So to summarize, at the end of 2016, after these two development workshops, we managed to have a first draft. So this first draft was already inserted in the interim report of the pilot project. So that was the first draft version where we already had an agreement on the, I would say, high-level structure of the outline. And then, beginning of 2017, we initiated really the phase where we would finalize the drafting of the outline, where we had this development workshop in Stockholm, in the Swedish Coast Guard headquarters, in March 2017, where I can say we finalized the exercise of the drafting. So I would say, to summarize the process, we have this constant exchange between the experts in charge of drafting and the agencies in charge of reviewing the draft developed by the experts. So I would say that at this stage we are today, beginning of June, so we have now circulated, agreed and finalized the outline. So now it will be integrated in the final report concerning the project, in particular task 3 under the pilot project. Here you have in this slide a description of the high-level structure of the guidelines. So here we didn't go into details concerning the structure, so you only have the main titles of the outline. But the idea was to already identify in the introduction, to specify the subject, the scope, and to provide certain definitions for the drafting of the outline, and also to refer to the cooperation framework. We have mentioned earlier this morning the ongoing discussion on the tripartite working arrangement. So as part of the introduction, the further discussion that we would have between the three agencies, the framework of this agreement are already included in that introduction. So subject, scope, definition, cooperation framework. We also identified the legal references which are relevant for this outline of guidelines, so mainly the 3 founding regulations of the agencies. Third part concerning the areas and modalities for cooperation. Here, the idea, the objective was to build on the existing areas of cooperation between the 3 agencies, and building on these areas, trying to formalize a bit the modalities for that existing cooperation, and already consider possible areas for further cooperation in the future. So this, we have identified these 4 areas for cooperation. So without entering into details, these 4 areas were identified during the kickoff meeting that we had here in ENSA in April 2016. So we identified these 4 areas of cooperation, and then we elaborated on this basis, trying to identify the different ways to formalize more that cooperation. So operational cooperation, training cooperation, situational awareness, and research and development were the 4 areas where we managed to identify the different activities of the agencies. Concerning the annexes, which are at this stage an important part of the work which has been done, we have included in the annexes, in fact, the result of the mapping that we carried out in 2016. So here you will find again what I mentioned previously, so the list of existing SLAs. So the 3 SLAs, the first one between 2015 between FK and ENSA for MARSUR. The second one concerning FK and Frontex for the provision of service in the framework of Eurosur. The third one concerning ENSA and Frontex, again, this SLA being agreed for giving support to Frontex activities for the implementation of Eurosur. So the 3 SLAs are mentioned there. The list of existing guidelines and books are also already listed in the annex to the outline of guidelines. So it has been, as I said previously, a lot of work for colleagues to identify this different existing material. So concerning EMSA in particular, you have identified more than 100 existing guidelines, technical handbooks, so a lot of material which is already collected. Concerning Frontex, there were 13 already existing guidelines and handbooks, and finally for FK it was 6 of this kind of guidelines and handbook, mainly referring to the one we have under our core curriculum for training. So a lot of material which has been collected and already identified, listed in this annex. This different material were identified as already being published for some of them, and for some other documents, guidelines or handbooks which were under development in certain agencies. And finally, the two last annexes, the one concerning the identified areas for cooperation with commons, this is a result of the kickoff meeting that we had here in April 2016 in Lisbon. And finally, the table concerning the different elements of organization in the 3 agencies with the contact details and all these elements that I previously mentioned. So, concerning specifically training, as I said, we had this specific discussion trying to identify the areas for cooperation in the area of the topic of training. First phase was to map our existing training courses. So in most of the agencies, we have a catalog of trainings, or we have, particularly for Frontex, this is called portfolio of training course. So we have different types of documents which summarize the offer of training which are in place in the agencies. So first step was to already map these existing training courses in the 3 agencies. Then, based on this first mapping, we had a discussion trying to identify the needs for a possible joint multi-operational course in the future. So that was an element of the discussion that we had, and which is reflected in the outline of guidelines. And finally, we had this discussion concerning the feasibility, added value. So here again, the objective was not to identify all of our courses and to say that all of them were relevant for our staff. We had this exercise of identification, selection, where we agreed that there would be an interest for our staff to participate to training organized by another agency. So this idea of selecting the existing courses, so possible inter-agency mutual attendance to training, that was the first idea. Also a reflection on this organization of joint courses by different agencies. So that was the main point which were discussed there, which, as I said, are reflected in the annex to the outline of guidelines that we developed. So to be very concrete here, you have for the 3 agencies the list of training courses which were identified as being of mutual interest. So you can see here that it's already a limited number of courses, but it's quite significant. I would say so. Not all agencies have an interest for the courses by another, but some of them have already identified a course of specific interest. So you can see here that basically the common elements that we identified in the 3 agencies are courses related to port state control, so from a maritime safety perspective, but also from a fish control inspection perspective. So port state control, maritime surveillance, and also the thematic concerning risk management, risk analysis. That was also an area which was considered of interest. So I will not go further into that list, but the idea was already to have this selection exercise, and I will show you a bit later in which way we manage to implement or to, in concrete terms, this interest. So what I can illustrate is from the FK side, we have concerning this catalog, our training catalog, we have already identified in this catalog specifically the courses which are of interest for.
From our side? Maybe Pascal?
Yeah, I would say it's not for, I just want it would be more for the Commission because of the new provision coming to the agency. We understood that the Commission now should provide the answers for what are the ideas or the framework prevailing to this possible contribution of the project.
Thank you, Pascal. Any other comments, questions? If not, then thank you very much, Alexandra. We go on. Our next topic will be the last.
Executive directors of the agencies and colleagues. Honourable guests, it's my pleasure to be here representing Task 4. Despite of the fact being the last on the list, but not least important one, I will try to underline most important elements from this Task 4 cooperation. We have this partnership of EFCA, and I will try to start with a quote of Henry Ford, which is probably fitting to this event. Coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. I hope with this pilot project we succeeded to work together, all the agencies, giving a really clear message to member states and users, and providing a really good platform for them to get European Coast Guard services fitting to their needs. To put our Task 4 multi-purpose operations in a nutshell, also I would like to thank policymakers which really pushed forward agencies towards the direction of Coast Guard functions. And as you can see already from September 2015, DGs started to speak together, 3 DGs actually came together, where they provided non-paper during European Coast Guard's function forum, which was distributed, providing idea on streamlining cooperation on Coast Guard functions. And afterwards there was pilot project adopted in December, and practical implementation started from January, when we had operations concept development together among agencies. At the same time, once again, I have to refer to excellent cooperation with end users, and especially end users from both communities. And at the end of the day, we had to negotiate with member states. And from January, immediately we had possibilities, thanks to the Italian Coast Guard, to deploy OPV with fisheries control mission within Frontex Joint Coordinated Operation Triton. So this was very quickly arranged and in very professional way. So once again, thank you for your open-mindedness that sometimes agencies are coming with new ideas and it's not easy to implement on a national level, which we have to respect procedures, etc., to overcome other shortcomings. So this was really well done. Another important moment I would like to refer was March, when we had EFCA and Frontex stakeholder meeting, when we bring together practitioners who are working on the field from different communities, starting to speak together to understand the problems as Frontex, Border Guard community, Coast Guard community has different type of issues. That's why it's very good to build trust. And all about was to build trust during these meetings and convince that Frontex is not now going to take over fisheries control or safety control or other tasks. So we still keep with our main mandates of the agencies. What we do, we foster cooperation. We try to make cost-effective action altogether that member states could benefit. And at the same time, we don't waste resources. So it was good to realize and member states to meet, to speak together and to establish this cooperation on agency level. And other events are related to interim report, which we produced in December, provided to Commission, to DGs, and as well we continued testing in 2017, and by today we closed pilot project. We believe that we have sufficient ground and basis to continue this interagency cooperation, integrating all tasks together in efficient action. So, continuing with my presentation, how it started, just to put in the brief points, we had to sit together, all agencies, and to identify our priorities. As you understand, each agency, as we spoke today, has different plans, different activities already settled, and plans for annual planning. That's why we had to prioritize areas, and Central Mediterranean was a commonly area identified by agencies as most of interest. However, during implementation, we got excited and we said, okay, maybe we can do a bit more and to go to other areas to explore other possibilities. That's why also Eastern Mediterranean was involved with joint operation Poseidon, and as well we expanded trials in Western Mediterranean with Operation Indolo, hosted by Spain. And to add to this, recently we had also possibility to have excellent cooperation hosted by Romanian authorities in the Black Sea. We are open also to other sea basins, as we said several meetings, if member states are seeing any interest. So we would be glad as agencies to come and to provide services, which you heard also today from previous speakers. Also, I would like to confirm once again a statement which was done also by executive directors several times, that we are not inventing the wheel. We are, as agencies, cooperating since almost establishment with each other, and we try to use what already exists. So basically, Frontex has offered operational platforms which are ready for different actions, multi-purpose actions. At the same time, agencies, other agencies provided also their services to be integrated. So it was a good opportunity to use and merge all the agencies' capabilities to the support of member states. As well, we try to exceed cooperation in the way that we test our limits, to which extent we can manage. I think it shows that agencies, they have really robust platforms and backbones. They're able to handle really heavy activities. I can really refer us to Frontex. We are maritime domain, quite having substantial presence. Since 2006, we are running joint maritime operations with annual presence in Central Mediterranean with Triton operation, as well as Eastern Mediterranean with Poseidon operation, and also some tailored operations in peak periods by deploying of dozens of assets and several hundreds of experts at the once. So this is really good value for other agencies as well as stakeholders to use these capabilities and to explore for other tasks. At the same time, like you heard today, we integrated services from other tasks, from task 1 and task 2. During the operational scenario, which was real, it was not fake once again, everything was tested in the real case scenarios during joint maritime operations, and from this we could learn the best lessons. How we organized all of this? Once again, we've been basing our cooperation on the settings of the agencies. For Frontex side, we had joint maritime operations platforms, and from EFCA side, we have joint deployment platforms which were used, or frameworks. And for coordination purposes, definitely we had to be in contact with member states, as they are our end users and main partners, and therefore we had periodic involvement of member states in this implementation group. And additionally to that, each agency defined the contact point, and so now I can call at any time to colleagues from EFCA and EMSA and discuss on any operational topic, because we got used to this cooperation, and it really works excellent. I can convince you there is now any issue to get any information. At the same time, we try to speak with one voice with member states, that on operational aspects there is common position established, and to provide to member states additional benefits, but not to make burden, if I would put it this way. When it comes to legal parts, for Frontex joint operations, we have operational plans, which are binding documents signed by executive director and host member state. And this operational plan was having also references to interagency cooperation. And at the same time, from EFCA's side, we had joint deployment plans also incorporating interagency agreements. Going to more details, definitely when you operate on technical level, you need some procedures. For that purpose, we had standard operating procedures developed per each area, central, eastern, and western. Basically to know how to exchange information, in which format to report, what to report. As you can imagine, if airplane or patrolling vessel is coming from the Baltic Sea, has a different approach than to the issues which vessel or airplane is going to face in central Mediterranean. So we had to adjust also this part. On the other hand, we had to provide also briefings to all those involved in activities, multi-purpose activities, before deployment started. And it took sometimes to explain to member states why we need this cooperation, because I am coming here to apply for border control. Why you need me also to report on possible illegal fishery or pollution cases? But afterwards, when you explain to colleagues, it seems very, very easy to understand that we have to use benefit of service, surveillance service. It's really luxurious to have airplane airborne, which we pay starting from 6,000 euros per flying hour. So it's very good opportunity to everybody to utilize this flying hour for different purposes. Because at the sea, when you overfly, you can meet different type of infringements. And just as reference, last year only, during Frontex joint coordinated operations, 96 tons of drugs were detected and arrested by national authorities thanks to Frontex support. So it's once again showing added value of European approach at maritime domain, an integrated approach or Coast Guard functions approach, that we don't lose any important information. And for this reason, also I would like to underline the importance of cooperation with other agencies, which could be expanded. Today we have European Defence Agency, who joins the family. Also, I could refer to Europol, which is a natural Frontex partner, dealing at maritime domain related to intelligence and countering smuggling and trafficking with different projects like Jot Mare and Pedra initiatives together in Italy, Greece, as well as MAO, I think is relevant, and both agencies are present here. So I think we can really build on current cooperation and involve all actors at maritime domain, which is also in line with European maritime security strategy. Once again, organization and responsibilities were done in the way that at the same time, besides the fact that we had interagency cooperation and dedicated tailored meetings, we still kept our own meetings related to border control, for example, perspective. So we didn't ignore our main field, and at the same time continued with their stakeholders' activities. And this is just illustration of operational areas. When we had also to sit together with the agencies, when I mentioned before, to make priorities, what we do and where we do. And at the end of the day, especially with EFCA, we identified that Central Mediterranean was a very priority area. And as you can see on the map, for Frontex it's also, and as you can hear today, Central Med is also increasingly active, having over 60,000 of migrants and other types of crimes in this area. So this was really good to put these maps together and overlay and to see which really hotspots we have. And as you saw from previous presentations, basically Central Med was really giving a lot of results. And for the results, my colleague from EFCA will explain to you. What else we done from practical point of view? We have to understand who is operating where. Because at the end of the day, we realize that we have sometimes similar partners, authorities, being present at sea, more or less at the same period, operating quite in vicinity. So it was beneficial to exchange deployment plans in advance, monthly basis, when we had listed assets which are present in Italy, which are assets present in Greece, and more specifically which hours they are patrolling in which areas, so that in case EFCA colleagues would like to have some common mission, they could also fit to certain schedule. So this was really beneficial to have this type of information exchange among agencies. What more? We had also, as I mentioned at the beginning, starting from Italian Coast Guard, deployment of EFCA officials on Frontex co-finance assets, seaborne and airborne as well, several missions. As well, once again, thank you for member state flexibility to accept this liaison officer on board, because each time we had to negotiate, because it's additional person on board, so it has to be in advance arranged space, because you immediately get reduced endurance when you put additional person. But in most cases, we had no problem to negotiate with member states of having this additional asset expert embedded to Frontex flying or sailing means. As well, we had opportunity to strengthen exchange of data. And I believe my colleague will confirm that we completely overloaded FCAS servers. They have to increase their capacity. Dozens of sightings were sent, over 1,000, with high resolution photos, and we received very positive feedback from the colleagues. And information was really provided close to real time. As well, we sent one operational colleague to FCAS Center, to Vigo, during Bluefin Tuna campaign, which was a link between operations and facilitated the chain of command and as well of communications. This was very, very beneficial. As well, also FCAS inspector was received on international coordination centers. So this showed very flexibility from both sides. So once again, the information was followed in agreed procedures by both agencies and respecting at the same time the mandates of the agencies. Each agency had to deal with information provided, so if FCA was receiving context was
who will continue the presentation from FCA. Neil, floor is yours.
Thank you, good afternoon, executive directors, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the opportunity to speak. And of course, thank you to the doubters. Here, I think I want to go a little bit deeper, and we've discussed a lot today about some of the clearly the very extremely positive cooperation we have, the exchange of information, the systems, the sightings, and I wanted to, within my presentation, go a little bit deeper to some of the success stories, some of the examples, some of the results that we actually have achieved, and I can show you very clearly how we are actually getting very solid cases that are actually coming from the pilot project. So firstly, I'll go to the sighting. This is something that Altus was speaking about. We heard already also from our colleagues in Frontex when we spoke of sightings coming from the mass operation. For the purposes of the task for them, we developed a sighting form that was within the standard operating procedures, covering Frontex and FCA stakeholders, but also in collaboration, of course, with EMSA. This allowed us to tailor the information that we would be receiving from the sighting that would be more interesting and essentially useful from a fisheries perspective. And this was very useful. For example, the photos, the type of markings that we would be most interested in. Because obviously the interest to have this information is increased if we're actually able to use it and follow it up very quickly. The longer there's any delay, obviously the utility of that information would decrease significantly. So the sighting form was an extremely useful way to have the sightings reported to us in almost real time. And as I said, the photos even more so when they're very high resolution, they're able to give us, for example, the markings or discernible features of the vessel which we could follow up with to conclude at the end of the day whether the target was legitimate, whether it was actually fishing, it should be there, or was not actually engaged in anything that it should not be doing. So firstly, just to give you a little bit of an example of why we had common interests, why we had common areas, and where we had operational examples where we had common interests, common planning, common risk assessment, and common results. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Within the Mediterranean, to give you one example of a fishery, we have, it's quite an iconic species, the bluefin tuna. It's fished in the Mediterranean, mostly now for farming purposes. It's very high value. There's a lot of vessels fishing. It's highly regulated, extremely highly regulated. And it's been subject to a recovery plan by the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, Convention, 54 countries, that govern it. It's been under a recovery plan for about 10 years. And I think it's got probably one of the most regulated fisheries, one of the most regulated species. And for a period of 1 month in the middle of the summer, from the end of May, it's currently now, until the end of June, purseaners that can catch the fish for farming are fishing in the central Mediterranean. And here you can see, based on VMS, the foreign fleet, the non-EU fleet, just to give you an example, Albanian, Nigerian, Egyptian, Libyan, Tunisian, and Turkish, the Turkish, albeit being in the east. Fishing very much in the Straits of Sicily, very much in a condensed area. They have been fishing historically in this area for some years. But if then you overlay the sightings information, the positions of the sightings that we're getting within Joint Operation Triton, you can very instantly see the common areas that we have. And so when we're receiving sightings from other vessels, or potential fishing vessels in exactly the same area, it's obviously a huge benefit for us and the member states when following up their obligations with regard to the controlling of the vessels. And during this very short period for fishing operations. So I think this very much clearly demonstrates the common areas we have. It wasn't just in the Mediterranean, but I think you can clearly identify here that although this is indeed an area very important for fisheries, it's also very much falls into the migration highway, if I can use that expression as well. Just a little bit more detail then on the flags of the vessels, the fishing vessels that have been sighted and forwarded to us and exchanged between the stakeholders and member states. Mostly it's Italian, I mean, by definition, but there was some Maltese and other EU flags. But from the non-EU flags, we have Tunisian, some Egyptian, some Algerian, and a few other third country vessels as well. I'd like to kind of stress also to the column on the far right, more than almost 200 vessels they weren't able to identify through either absence of markings or it wasn't able to detect the flag clearly. And I think this is very important to know because this is one of the value of the sighting. It's only useful if you're able to follow up on the information. So quite a lot of flags involved, and certainly our interest in some parts of the season with the third countries, given that there may be and have been and continue to be possibly involved in other activities such as illegal smuggling of migrants and so on. As far as the progression of the sightings throughout the period of the pilot project, I think you cannot see too well, but the first peak represents the last summer, when, as I mentioned, we had the peak of the bluefin tuna fishing operations. There was a gentle and continued supply of sightings exchanged between us until the end of the year. That peak represents certainly in part the multi-purpose aerial surveillance, the mass operations that was presented earlier by colleagues from Frontex. But I think in general, I'd just like to say that in general, the quality of the sightings is extremely useful to be followed up on. And I think that was also stressed by the Powers that it's only useful to have this information if it's directly reported in real time and with as much information, such as high quality photos, as possible. Just to give you a little bit more of a solid example, as I mentioned, the fishery, and using the case study again of bluefin tuna because it's quite a good one, the fishery, the authorised fishing period for the bluefin tuna finishes on the 24th of June. So here we had a case study after that period when fishing operations were not authorised. These sightings were forwarded to us from a Latvian helicopter aircrew operating on the Joint Operation Triton based in Lampedusa. We had already involved and had briefings that the Powers also mentioned with them. They were able then to deliver some sightings to us. The crew were able to identify vessels, targets that were consistent potentially with fishing operations. Here, they are able to identify smaller vessels that are associated with purse seine operations. They were then able to follow up because they knew that to be more useful, we would need markings, and also we would need potentially more detail if they were actually engaged in fishing operations and not just perhaps either fishing for another species or just navigating. And as they went on, they were able to then get that type of useful images that we would need, such as the net being hauled out of the water, which seemed obvious, but it's actually vital to have this level of detail. And just to be sure that they were not fishing perhaps sardines or something else, they were able to then go into a lot more detail and take images that prove that they were not indeed sardine obviously bluefin tuna. So clearly a very interesting case study for us, clearly demonstrating that the sightings are extremely useful, and the most important thing that when put together with training, when briefing, when having this additional capacity as a crew that know what they're looking for is extremely useful for us. I mean, bluefin tuna is an example, but now more recently we have Mediterranean swordfish, we have other perhaps deep water shrimp and hake in the Straits of Sicily as well. All these species are likely to be under recovery plan, the stocks are in trouble. Therefore, they are becoming priorities for the member states, they are becoming priorities for us, and they will be very much, if not already, encapsulated within our joint deployment plans. So although we have good solid examples of bluefin tuna, we are likely to be expanding the targets of interest for us, and that underlines the importance of briefings for the air crew in the International Coordination Centre with the operators that are actually in the field, because without this level of detail, the value is diminished. Other objects of interest, other case studies, we had an Egyptian fishing vessel, all in two in Triton and Indolo, that I think were quite good examples. An Egyptian fishing vessel that was used for migrant smuggling, that was photographed, as you can see here, with migrants on board, also a Tunisian vessel, and also a Spanish fishing vessel which was involved in Indolo with a drug seizure on board. I think also to mention what I was saying about the Tunisian Egyptian, the fishing fleets are quite large, and as I mentioned, they're in some respects quite unquantified. There's a large wooden fleet, there's a lot of artisanal fisheries, there's artisanal fisheries mixed with industrial fisheries. There is two management organisations primarily that are responsible for fisheries in general within the high seas in the Mediterranean, ICAT, which I mentioned already, and the GFCM, an FAO body. The fleet sizes that are already authorized with these organizations are already very large. To give you some examples, the authorized Egyptian fleet above 15 meters is about 2,000, and these are the vessels which have been legitimately authorized. So just there are a lot of fishing vessels operating, some legitimately, some perhaps not, in areas where we all have a common interest. So just to give some example there of the scope of the fishing activities, certainly from our side in these areas. So to summarize then, from the sighting point of view, almost 90% included photos attached to the report that was extremely useful, because even when we don't have a very clear name, we're able to follow up with other information. There was a small number in the night, albeit useful nonetheless, but it's obviously going to be more difficult for the operator to have any discernible markings from the targets. 165 are finally classified as unknown. But in general, it's still valuable. Risk assessment, planning, strategic, using the best, the limited resources that are available at sea. It goes without saying that the benefits within the fisheries control perspective, our point of view is very much self-evident. Moving on from the mission deployment, as Bertanta said, we also deployed our experts on the vessels on both the sea and in the air. 5 sea missions, 8 air missions, and also, as was already presented, for the MAS as well within those flights, 29 flights. Obviously, when we are deploying our experts on Frontex coordinated assets in the joint operations, the other tasks and responsibilities, such as SAR by the ICC, or certainly SAR, MRCC, would obviously take precedence, but nonetheless, I think it's important to note that we're able and have proved to successfully deploy from our side our resources, our experts in the areas, in the scene of action, if you like. Briefings, I tried to underline the importance of the briefings already. The fisheries, the situations change, the situations with the migrants change, and I think it's always, and we will continue to engage both with the coordination centres and the member state crew that are performing the joint operational documents. We've done up to now 7 briefings in Triton, 3 in Indolo and 5 in Poseidon. As my colleagues mentioned, and as the executive directors also mentioned in our opening speeches, we've done the best we can with the resources we have. I mean, these are the numbers we should commend ourselves, because it was not easy to be everywhere at the same time. But we tried, with the excellent cooperation we had with Frontex, to try and prioritise the work as much as we could in the briefings to increase the technical capability of the crew as much as we can with the resources that we have. The briefings that we did obviously will involve as much fisheries focused as possible, the specific time of the year, the joint deployment plan activities that we have, and how to compile the information and how to take the information and report it to us in the most useful and expeditious way. As the others mentioned, it's reciprocal. We had Frontex experts coming to our operations room in the peak of the Bluefin Tuna campaign last year. We're also engaging with them now. The campaign is also on. We don't have an expert at the moment, but we're also having regular discussions and operational planning communications with them, as Alphas mentioned, such as the CIPRA, the planning of means, and the fixing of priorities, common priorities. And also, which was, again, I won't go into detail, with the MAX operation for experts deployed in March and April of this year. As Alphas again mentioned, we didn't only stay in the Mediterranean, we're exploring this type of cooperation in the Black Sea. We organised very recently an implementation group where we bring the different communities together. In the case of the Black Sea, there was 4 different agencies, the Bulgarian Border Police, and then the agency responsible for fisheries, and likewise for Romania. And the first day was really exploring initially where we could do common activities, where we shared mutual interest, where there could be this type of promotion of synergies for the future. And then on the second 2 days, then we put this into practice to do some initial trips at sea. There was an initial mission at sea, where there was a real fisheries control voyage with border surveillance capability in parallel. Yes, it is. Finally, as we also mentioned, we've also within the period of the pilot project always wanted to try and exchange common practices, promote synergies as much as possible, including with the excellent work that's already been done up to now by the Functions Forum. In this regard, we tried to promote, certainly, with as it was the priority of the day, to have the intra-agency as well, cooperation within the various stakeholders. And this was, we were present for the drill implemented recently in Troya in Portugal.
This can also bring added value to the core business of Frontex, to the core business of border guards. And this is especially the case if we bear in mind that Frontex, the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, has now an extended mandate in the field of security, fight against crime, organized crime at the external borders, prevention of terrorism at the external borders, which brings us to a closer cooperation with Europol, between Frontex and Europol on the one side, with Frontex and now Eurojust. So we are developing cooperation, let's say, in the core business of security, law enforcement, fight against crime, terrorism, all these topics which are on the top of the agenda, unfortunately, in the European Union. On the other hand, this cooperation with other agencies in the maritime domain can probably bring more business to you, because maybe we can also bring new cases which are relevant for EMSA, cases which are relevant for EFCA. And we were discussing during this presentation, and we had also opportunities with other directors, with Pascal and Marco. Now a question maybe for member states. We
are able to provide kind of evidences of infringements, breach of law, criminal activities or whatever. Can national courts use this? Can national law enforcement, national investigating services use this as an evidence which is valid in the court to convict the criminals or the people or the companies who infringe the law? So maybe this could be one ambition going further, but of course the three agencies, we can only support the member states, we can only support the EU policy makers. Maybe in the course of the next month we will, in the context of our trilateral steering group, when we are going to agree on strategic actions, we will see how we can go further based on this operational experience, based on what we have already tested in the field of capacity, in the field of development of common or shared information. But maybe one step further, maybe one day we will come together back to you, member states and Commission and EU policy makers, and maybe one day we will say, well, we have identified this and this and this. We are ready, we can work together, we are interoperable in operational sense, but now what about real use of this for a proper law enforcement? So this would be maybe one question we'd like to suggest.
Thank you. I share a lot of these ideas, I would say. I think that first of all, an agency is not a polity. The responsibility of implementing the European policy are the member states. So we cannot do much without you. We can support you, we can coordinate, we can assist, but I would say the driving force in our legal arrangement is falling under the responsibility of the member states. So the question today is, as I tried to convey it during my little speech of this morning, is what can we do more altogether? How can we move from me to us doing something altogether? And I think I see a few areas where we could work, of course, with the support and the agreement of the Commission toward maybe a more impact or result-oriented approach. We are all accountable here. We have money from the member state, from our citizens, which are paying taxes, and we have to do the best we can. And my feeling is that we need to be more, I would say, result-driven. First of all, we need a strategy. We have tested the concept. We know that we can work together efficiently, and I think the member states were part of this pilot project, and I think we can do better altogether. So the strategy is having, first of all, a clear delimitation of what we could do altogether within the remit of the Coast Guard approach. What are the objectives? How we measure this objective? How we develop a risk management strategy which would, I would say, encompass maybe different aspects of the risk. But I think we need to develop a vision, and that can be done in the present arrangement of the between us and maybe suggesting, proposing to the board, or can be done in a different, I would say, governance model with a sort of regional steering group made by the board member of the areas and conveying these ideas, strategies, risk analysis to the board of different agencies to approve or not approve. The second aspect, and I would like to echo what has been said by my two predecessors, there are a few gaps or limbos in the legal arrangements. We have an interesting capacity with the so-called union inspector in the framework of the common fishery policy, but this does not exist everywhere. You can have, for example, one member state inspector of one policy aboard a patrol vessel of another member state. Depending on the national organization of the legal system, the inspector of the with a different flag of patrol vessel on which he or she is might not be able to provide or be recognized as a valid testimony of the infringement. Is that question the capacity and our capacity of to be responsive and to be agile in a multi-purpose operation. We also know that we have a huge concern with, I would say, the limits of the water limits in the Med, for example. We have some gray areas. We have some unilateral declaration of areas, and that also concern our capacity of deployment and what we can do legally and without breaching any even national legislation. And, moving now to the third dimension, to the air, we also know the complexity and for the time being, the difficulty to fly non-manned aerial system, and that is also a real concern for the future. We see the capacities which are very promising, but at the same time we have a real concern. So I would say there are some things that we can do, I would say, easily. We can work on the strategy, we can work on risk management strategy, we can work on KPIs, we can measure the efficiency, we can make a joint implementation of some policies. But on the other hand, the member states are also to agree on these ideas and to support this proposal and to be actor and promoter on these ideas. So sorry to be so long. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I'm looking at the time now, and I would propose that we go for a coffee and we come back 4 o'clock, and then we can continue this part of the agenda, questions and discussion. This was a bit feed water for the discussion and some kind of wrap up from the...
So what's the division at home? Normally it's women that are talking.
Yeah, but I mean, in politics there's enough women too. So I think we are becoming feminine in politics. So should I start to talk? Where should I look?
You can. Me.
Yeah. At you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Observing this workshop, I'm happy to say that I will bring back a very, very positive message to European Parliament, that all three agencies are working very well together. There's good progress of cooperation, and there is no fear that somebody is intruding in each other's affairs. The outcome of this meeting is definitely a more safe European borders and more...
Sorry. Sorry.
Just silent.
Okay, let's try once more. From the beginning, okay?
Yes.
I'm happy to bring back a message to European Parliament that all agencies are working very well here.
Sorry. Apologies.
Okay, maybe you close the door, shoot them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Ladies.
Otherwise I will really talk long.
All those women.
Okay, can I start? No, let's try.
Yeah.
I'm happy to bring back a message to European Parliament from this workshop that all three agencies are cooperating very well. The level of cooperation is deep. There is much more practical issues discussed, and it definitely will increase the security of our outside borders and cooperation between agencies and member states, including many matters. I think this is one of the examples where we can show that European Union works in practice.
Done. You're free. You've done this before
Before somebody is
obviously.
shooting something else.
That's
Okay.
good. Thank you very much. Have a good day. We are at the moment, and really we are not doing this exercise for ourselves, but it's for the member states. So I would like to see some hands up to comment and put questions about the topics we have discussed today. Who will be brave to start? Our Swedish colleagues, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much for very good presentations and for good work so far. I have some questions, some comments, and then I also heard a question from the plenary. So I start with the question that was raised from the Executive Director of Frontex, I think. Is this what we have presented good enough to bring evidence to court? Good question. And the answer, I would say, could differ quite a lot who country you ask, because the national jurisdiction will set the frames of that. And the reason for that is that there are quite many different types of Coast Guarding. We talk about organizations as Coast Guard, as I'm representing. They are independent organizations, as the Swedish Coast Guard, coordinating all the civil requirements for maritime surveillance and information. But we are not a part of the family that you three executive directors represents, and that is a challenge as it is. In other countries, such as Finland, we have an integrated coast guard in the border guard, and some other countries have a coordinating body, so to say. So it's quite a challenge to meet the member states and to have a dialogue with the member states. But what I think it's important to say is the national jurisdiction that gives the authority for the Coast Guard organizations, whatever they are called, to act. Could be a possibility to carry out inspections, and that is. You write a report, send it in to the competent authority. Or it could be a law enforcement agency as the Coast Guard, for example, or the Border Guard in Finland, that can actually also start an investigation, bring evidence to court, carry out arrests, and so on. And that is, according to a question, the last part is not possible if you don't have the authority to carry out an investigation or to make an arrest. And you can take an oil spill, for example. Every authority in the world are obliged, more or less, by the Marpol Convention to send a flag state report on what they have seen. In Sweden, we claim that you can also arrest the vessel, bring it to the harbour, and carry out an investigation, bring evidence to court. But you can also decide upon what we call an oil pollution fee, which is not a fine, it's a fee. An administrative fee, as you can also in some cases according to fishery investigations. So it's not an easy question to answer, I would say. What could be done is, according to the different types of crimes, you can have joint investigation teams between different authorities, between different countries. And that is used from case to case by law enforcement authorities. That's from the Swedish perspective. Could be differs from other countries, maybe. I have some reflections also, and maybe also a question. Listening to your presentations and taking also, in some cases, part in the developments that you have worked with, I can't help having the reflection that you are very much talking about the operational focus according to operations. GDPs, joint operations and so on, according to Frontex. But the daily work is more than operations focused on special issues. And from that perspective, I also hear that you talk very much about your internal cooperation, more actually than cooperation with member states. I'm looking very much forward to cooperation with member states, and if I should express a question, it will be, how will you go further? We haven't heard much about your agreement between your three executive directors. I know there is one, and that includes also an organization, I think, on how to go further. And my question will be, what do you expect for the member states? Do you expect us to in some way implement this new EU regulation in national legislation? Is there any, do you have any reflections on that? According to Swedish situation, I would say that there are no initiatives taken at the moment to implement what you are working with international legislation. We have a system with the National Advisory Board on Maritime Surveillance, which I'm the chairman of at the moment, for a couple of weeks more. But what do you expect from the nations, from the member states, according to implementing this in national legislation? Thank you.
Thank you, Sweden. Then we had, on the other hand, we will respond to these questions, we collected questions and then we respond. There was somebody else also on the same corner.
Thank you very much. Ben Nichols from Europol, job market, I'm not a member state, another agency. I'd like to congratulate all the players today on the enormous progress that's been made in really quite a short time, and especially I'd like to extend some thanks to Frontex and the FSC, with whom we cooperate almost on a daily basis, and that's extremely fruitful. I'm pleased that Ms. Legeri touched on the question of organised crime. It's really important to complete the full situational picture, and that is the identification and disruption of organised crime groups. Europol is not in the business of tracking vessels, that's not what we do. But we're very much involved in identifying and analysing criminality involved in the maritime domain and supporting member states in their investigations. I would say this is a truly horizontal issue that cuts across all forms of criminality, not just migrant smuggling, but weapons, cigarette smuggling, drugs, etc., etc. It's about the people concerned and the interconnected companies, the crew, behind each boat, whether it's large or it's a small boat. We, Europol, that is, has currently identified over 800 vessels of interest, and that information comes from multiple sources. And we've concentrated also on disrupting crime group business models, supply lines, and financial flows. Of course, Europol has challenges, particularly on data protection and exchange, overclassification of information, and sometimes there is a reluctance by member states to share information. But now, of course, we've got a revised Europol regulation which should facilitate the sharing of information with a much wider range of stakeholders. And it's perhaps a good moment to ensure that all this excellent progress is fully deconflicted and integrated and taking into account all facets of law enforcement activity. It's not really a question, but I think it's a question of how do we achieve that. Thank you.
Not only describing, but also focusing on concrete projects which are testing the possibilities on the way ahead. So we should congratulate you for the successful outcome. And I should add, in a very, very demanding timelines, we should highlight this. And we know as European citizens how important is this step. So congratulations to you and also to the three DGs. We should identify that. In the morning, the European Defence Agency was mentioned a couple of times. We should thank those that they made reference, and also we saw it also in the slides. But not only the European Defence Agency, other agencies like SATSEN, and I took the microphone from Europol. I should welcome this approach, which goes broader than the three agencies, because this project indeed has synergies and relevance to other activities and to other sectors. In the past, of course, CIVMIL
and also some advertising, benefiting from the fact that the European Coast Guard Functions Forum was mentioned. But first of all, I would like also to echo the congratulations for the three agencies and for the long walk that already was, the long way that already was walked since October. Basically what the COSTEX was mentioned here, and mentioned related with multifunction, multi-agency operations concept. In fact, COSTEX was not an exercise, a traditional exercise, to assess the performance of the actors, of the teams of the crews. COSTEX was an experiment to test and validate the assumptions of a concept. And this concept is the multifunction, multi-agency operations. And the intention is to demonstrate what we, as a community, have all been saying, is that it is possible to work together, to work in network, to share information, to share assets, and to work effectively and efficiently. We started in September, but it was more or less the same time frame as these three agencies working together, and it has been a great experience. We have worked in a long way. What the Europeans expect from us to have a safe and secure maritime environment, performing these Coast Guard functions, no matter how we see them, but in fact they are very important to make sure that Europe is safe and secure from the maritime environment point of view. Thank you.
We are working for the member state, and why I asked this, that the audience should come to us, that could we do more for the member states? Because now when we are collaborating with each other, so we can provide more services for the national authorities. We already heard that there are more than 300 national authorities doing the Coast Guard functions, and this is a wide variety of different types of authorities which we are collaborating with. It is a challenging environment. There are different types of jurisdiction, as you mentioned, different type of legislation, different type of attitude on the member state authorities towards the services which is provided by the three agencies. And I think collaboration with the member state could be intensified, and we could, with this forum, explain more what we can do to the member state, and then also understand what member state could do more to support what we are doing. So, in
response to the question what we expect from member states, and maybe I would combine this with the question about what should happen in the daily business. It's true that Frontex usually deploys big operations, so we have famous operations in Italy, Triton, in Poseidon, Greece, but there are other activities which are less visible. And now the question in the daily work, in your daily work, and what kind of daily support we could provide, I think the experience has shown when we have an operation, like for instance in Italy with Triton, where we tested the deployment of inspector, fisheries inspector on pollution and to report to EMSA. Well, that's clear for the national authorities. In this case, it was Italy, because we have a command structure in order to run the operation. And normally, there are channels to exchange information. But if, in the context of some kind of monitoring of or surveillance activity, one agency suddenly get information that would require a follow-up from member states. Just an example. If a vessel which is supposed to be deployed in Frontex operation is on its way from Northern Europe, from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, or the other way around, do we want that those vessels still, well, sail back home, or do we want to use this time to contribute to Coast Guard functions at EU level, and maybe unexpectedly that this contribute to addressing an incident, an ongoing incident somewhere, that we brief you about the progress we make and about what we can achieve, and so that you can consider how to embed this in your daily work.
Reply to Admiral Dan Torell of the Swedish Coast Guard. First of all, the issue of national jurisdiction and the empowerment of inspector is something that we are working on in FCAR. So we are working mostly in the concept of the union inspector as how to train people to protect and to secure the evidence in order that those evidence should be accepted by another court. So we have different legal system, and we are not the same drivers and methodology for protecting the evidence for a common law system or for a Roman legal system. And that is something that we have been working many times in the FCAR. We had a working group in 2012, 2013, including some national prosecutor. I remember that the Netherlands participated to this project as well for the southern North Sea, and I think this is something that we can benchmark to other areas of maritime law if this idea is considered as interesting by the member state. You mentioned, Dan, that you had the feeling that our activity had been mostly playing agency with agency and mostly focusing on ourselves more than cooperating with the member state. You might have this impression, but I'm not entirely in agreement, because all we did was in fact for the member state. The idea was that you were the final user, the end user, and also the main actors. So if I try to give the FCAR perspective is from the TGDG, the Tactical Joint Deployment Group, which is operating the Joint Deployment Plan. And as I mentioned this morning, we create below the TGDG the fusion of two communities, the community of fishery control and border control, and they were involved in the steering of the operation, joint operation and joint deployment plan. And that has been done with and for the member states. Now, if I come to the cooperation for collecting data, for shadowing activities, all this information has been transmitted to the TGDG. The TGDG is our member state. Only the stakeholder are member states, and each, I would say, the TGDG is chaired by member states with the support of the agency. So this information and the more than 1,000 sightings provided the cooperation have been transmitted in a near real time to the member state. When it comes to the sharing of platforms, some member states flow into with mass and were part of the of this deployment, and also
the idea of having a multi-purpose operation was involved basically built on the ideas that the member states were providing platform of were providing inspector experts. And I would like to remind the commitment we have all together that we made on November the 29th in Catania, Sicily, that in 2018 we will start a multi-purpose operation with contribution from the Swedish Coast Guard in the Baltic Sea. And I'm looking forward to work all together in 2019, of course, with the contribution of the other coastal member states and maybe not, maybe some other member states. What can we, for example, Finland, what can we expect from the member states? Voting in the council a regulation. It's very embarrassing for us that the same member states are not having the same position in the board, and that is a real concern. Because for us, it's not possible to go ahead. So what we are expecting, what I would expect is consistency and coherence between the decision and the implementation. I understand that you might have a different view because you are more experts than maybe executive, and that the board are specific, I would say, ecosystem with people which are directors, some of them are more in the level of the implementation, and that you might have a different view. But that, for me, it's very important that we saw the sort of high fidelity between what is a joint discussion between the three boards, or organizing some specific workshop could be a way of clarifying the future. At the end of the day, you are the provider or offer the resources, and us, we are, to some extent, you are your instrument, you are in your hand. We are designed for working for you and for the Commission. So, depending on your expectation, we will try to reply to your expectation. If you are ambitious, we will be ambitious. But if you are no vision, we try to do our best, but the result might be not what you expected. So, and I will stop here. Let's be ambitious, let's be visionary, let's prepare the situation of tomorrow and not prepare the fights and the war of yesterday. And that I know that we can do it together because we have did in the past, and that for me it's the most important gift and privilege that we can have with the member state.
Then we had the other question from Ida, how to reach out the good results and synergies with the other agencies. I believe that Frontex is in the front line to collaborate with other agencies more widely in your domain. So maybe Fabrice would elaborate this question.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. When it comes, well, I have to repeat that we are a civilian agency, of course, in that according to EU law and EU standards, border management is a civilian task. However, in the course of our operations, we have sometimes vessels and crews with a military status. In some member states, and I think that Portugal is one of those, but there are other member states, where military assets can be used for civilian purpose in Coast Guard functions and for law enforcement. That means that they have to be trained in order to be ready to implement those civilian rules, be border management, or I don't know if this is relevant more than an agency, that's NATO in Greece, between Greece and Turkey, because as you may know, NATO was invited by the European Union to deploy some vessels there as well, and Frontex has on a permanent basis a liaison officer deployed to the NATO flagship in that context. Whether this is really a cooperation with military entities, It's a cooperation with military entities for civilian purposes. Let's put it like this. Because it's not the mandate of an agency like Frontex to step in a military business. The difficulties and the challenges we see, and this is not only between EU agencies and military entities, but this is also sometimes within the same country between civilian and military entities. It's the exchange of information, because sometimes military organizations overclassify information that cannot be shared then with civilian entities. While according to civilian standards, this kind of information could be protected, but not such a high level. So this is my experience. But when it comes to capacity building, I got a question one day from the European Defence Agency Executive Director, if I may tell this here to this audience, and he asked me, do you know what kind of drones you would like to have in 10 years from now for border management? And I must say that I was not able to answer this question. First, because I've never heard border management authorities in member states asking this kind of question. And, well, this is a question maybe, or these are areas where civilian and military entities could try to talk about and to see whether the question is relevant for both entities.
This pilot project. And also thank you, and very sincerely thank you to all the speakers today. And I'm probably in this room the least qualified person to appreciate what you have said, because I'm not an expert in your field.
No, that's me, I guess.
The way of working together, the cooperation, and the work they have done in this project. And so for me, that is a very significant, very telling measurement of whether it has been successful or not. I think it has been successful in that sense. And I leave it to the experts to judge whether the results actually live up to that standard. I think that's a very good standard. I'd like to thank also, of course, the members of the